things that are gonna be added at the next available meeting here, you know, as we go through tonight.
And last month, we talked about the snowplow agreement and what to do moving forward, and that isn't on the agenda
Nope.
again.
No, we have,
We were gonna try and do it sooner rather than later.
yes, we do have a couple things we are gonna remove. One, I wanna do it right now. Under 7C2, the Russell Pier permit, we're tabling that till April. I did notify the Russells. Two things there. One, we have to make sure, first of all, it should say variance, and it doesn't say variance, okay? So that's one reason, and the second reason is, in effect, a variance is, needs a public hearing format. With a public hearing format, it's not like the plan commission where we have a set ordinance that says who gets notified and how much in, before, you know, in advance. So that's why we're gonna do that, so that one is off. As far as the snow plowing one, that could be put back on. I mean, we have, like I said, we have plenty of business here. That could be put back on if somebody wanted it, but that question was asked and answered at a meeting, and I do agree that, I do believe the minutes said, let's, you know, have it at another meeting, I believe it was this meeting. But that is something that could be brought up again, but we did answer that question on how it's gonna be handled. And we could do that, I mean, I'd rather not do that now, because it's not on the agenda,
Right.
and I could bring it up in my report.
And I can't recall, yeah, it can't happen tonight now. I believe that my draft called for payments to be received by October 30th. It was in October at
Yeah.
sometime, so we do have some time.
Okay, all right. So that's the only thing I see is removing that one, 7C3, 7C2. Can't add anything. Anybody else have any changes on this? If not, a motion to approve with the one change.
So moved.
Bill Booker made a motion to approve the agenda with the one change. Barb Church, second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, meeting minutes. We have the regular meeting from February 13th. And I just had one mark on mine, page 4, for core engineering on the two bridge inspections. Core is 2 R's. CORRE. And that,
Under planning commission,
under, okay, that was under new business, the second bullet, the 2 R's. Got that? Core, CORRE. Okay, go ahead.
under planning commission, third line,
What page is that on, Barb?
3.
Okay.
It, I think needs to be stated, the lot number on Sabota Road due to
Yep.
an error in the, is it momentum?
No, monumentation.
Monumentation.
Okay,
It is the correct word.
just checking that one, but I
I don't
felt that we needed a 2.
Okay, adding a 2 on the plan
We need
commission.
an article.
I just had a question, just for clarity, because it came up in our communications committee meeting. So, like, in these minutes, it says motion passed unanimously, although Supervisor Wales was not present. We kind of had a similar situation, and I was asked to report it as a 4-0 vote.
Under which report?
Just for my reference, like I had drafted our meeting minutes,
Oh,
and
okay.
we had a similar situation where one person was not in attendance, and I made our notes motion passed unanimously after that person was marked as exiting the meeting. And I was asked to change it to 4-0 instead of unanimous, so it,
I think it can be accurately reflected as unanimous vote as long as you put on top who was
Who was
not.
there?
Or when they left.
Correct.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on the February 13th minutes? Bill, anything?
One small item, because I know we've got it correct now. On the communication report, 2 bullets, the second bullet, the communication chain would be from Michelle to a webmaster. Everywhere else we've correctly stated it would be to Jen. So
Okay.
is it not from Michelle to Jen versus a webmaster?
I believe that's what we said, but in effect, the webmasters work together. The question is what would be proper? I believe how you understood it was you would discuss it with Jen, correct?
Yeah, but I guess if
The
she's
note
out,
says-
technically it would be, I guess if she's out,
Yeah.
technically it
No,
would
say
be
to a webmaster.
either Jean or,
Yes. All right,
But
And
Michelle,
typically
you would
Jen's
go-
first
you
in
would
line
go
for
Jen
that.
first.
Okay.
That would be your
Jen's the
first
first
person.
in line for that.
yep.
okay, gotcha. All right, anything else? If not, a motion to approve with those 3 changes?
I move we approve the town hall meeting, the town board meeting minutes for the month of February with the amendments.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, and then we have Communications Committee meeting minutes from February 27th.
Yeah, so, this has been reviewed and approved by the committee, so I would submit the Communications Committee meeting minutes from February 27th for approval by the board. I make a motion?
Thank you, motion. Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have a second? Someone? Anyone?
Second,
Barb, Church second, discussion?
yes.
Go ahead.
Under meeting video discussion, I would like to see us, line number 9, where we talk about the IT consultant. I would like that to be the provider and not the personal name, so Keiko, and not the personal name. And that would also be line 12.
Besides Tate is T-A-T.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know.
I know.
I've seen it both ways, so that's why, yeah,
It's okay,
all right.
all right. Anything else?
No.
So I have a question, in the attendance, both Chad and I attended, so there was a quorum. It was noticed that there may be a quorum in attendance, but the 3 residents and guests, you're referring to the 3 of us that were there?
Correct. It would have been 2 board members and
I think John was
a
there.
resident, yeah.
Yes.
I prefer to see that Chad and I were both in attendance by name, because
I believe since it was noticed, that'd probably be proper to list, you could list all 3 names. That's what was there.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. Okay,
we're there, we can't be citizens and not be town supervisors.
Yeah,
That's-
We're both.
Mm-hmm,
we will.
mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, that's 2 changes. Anything else?
Michelle, I have a question in terms of minutes, and when were they, at the end of, when you submit these reports, if you could tell us, I think, when the meetings were approved and the vote on that? Because I don't know, when were these approved? Because I was at the 27th meeting,
Yeah.
was it the 6th?
Yeah.
The next
But it's
meeting.
not on the 6th report.
Yeah, you don't have the minutes from the 6th yet,
That's just a
because we
report.
don't, we didn't have another meeting
Because it's approved, I get it.
to approve those minutes.
That's just a report.
Such, I think it should be highlighted in this report when it was approved. If
That's what I orally reported, because
Yeah, I got you.
these are the minutes that had to be, so
It's
the
just-
approval
it's a
wasn't part of the
timeline
minutes.
question. It's not an accusation, I'm just
Yeah.
concerned.
Okay. So we have just 2 changes, and the 3 names up on top, and then the company of the
Keiko,
IT consultant. Keiko. Keiko,
KACO.
okay. All right,
So, I'm sorry, so when were these approved?
At the March 6th meeting,
the next meeting, we meet every 2 weeks.
The minutes you don't have that.
right.
March
Okay.
because they haven't been.
Yeah.
Right.
Good meeting.
Okay, is it, we're all good, no other comments? Okay, on the motion to approve the Communication Committee meeting minutes from February 27th, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? None, motion carries. All right, I believe that was just the two, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, clerk treasurer's report, Kim?
Treasury report for February 2023. Total receipts for February were $16,280.24. Transfers were $209,000. Interest earned on the general checking was $171.16. Balance as of January 31st was $14,271.98. Total funds for February were $239,723.38. Checks paid in February were $236,717.23. Balance then of $3,006.15 for the general checking account. Boat launch to date is $1,865.
Okay, any questions on the treasurer's report?
I make a motion that we approve the February 23rd, 2023 treasurer's report as presented.
I'll second.
All right,
Just one comment, Troy, for Kim. Again, I appreciate the long list of activities that you conduct throughout the month. And I think you providing us this report does bring greater clarity to the contribution, as well as Jean's, to the day-to-day office functioning.
okay. All right, so,
Any update on the, I see the Badger books didn't get set up in time for the election, but you did do some training?
We
or-
do intend to use them for April. We're
Mhm.
going to have training, have to schedule a co-working program, 2 sessions of training for the Badger books on March 21st and 22nd. One in the evening, one in the afternoon.
Okay. Good news. That'll be exciting.
Kim, small potatoes, what does the abbreviation ICE stand for?
I'm sorry, where?
It's on
Number
7.
7? Image Cast Evolution.
Image, I should have known that.
Image Cast Evolution voting equipment.
Okay, thanks.
All of Walden County has the same equipment.
okay. All right, well, Kim went through the treasurer's report, the cash version. The narrative is actually part of the report, and we asked questions on that too. Are you gonna say anything more on that, or are we gonna approve both of these? We have a motion and a second on the floor.
You just have to approve the treasurer's report. but
All right,
if
we have a-
anybody has questions,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the treasurer's report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, did anybody have any further questions on Kim's one-page report of all the activity? I think we answered, or asked most of them already. We good?
Helpful, for sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on, committee reports. My report, the Tri-Troy Alliance met 2/21 and 3/7. Normally we meet once a month. We met twice a month because we were working with the school district. We had presentations by the administrator and principals and teachers, and even the last meeting, the Vote Yes Committee. And we been working hand in hand with the school district, actually for probably 2 to 3 months on this issue, the referendum. And basically exchange of information to make sure that if there's anything that the towns or the village could do to assist this. We've been working on that. We also posted, like the mailer that went out, that did get posted to our website. I believe there's another one coming. In effect, it's a totally, different governmental entity, so to speak. However, the Tri-Troy Alliance looked at it as the referendum as a community issue, because the quality of the schools definitely have an impact on the quality of life in this town, as well as our tax impacts. Okay, so that's why we got involved with that, so we had plenty of discussion on that, a couple 2-hour meetings, so it actually was pretty good.
Do we include those on our calendar on the website, the Tri-Troy Alliance
No.
meeting?
There's no town business connected. And
Well, it's not a town meeting.
discussion, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a town meeting. I do think, though,
How would
since it was
people
brought up, I do think that in our next newsletter, the one pager that I have that shows all the accomplishments would probably be a good thing to put on there, okay? Because both John Kendall and Scott Seeger, of course, are not gonna be up for election next month. So I think it would be good to show what we got accomplished in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'll submit that to Jen, and actually I'll hand it
Well,
out
to,
here today too.
the committee writes the newsletter articles.
Well, this will be submitted to the proper place. So, did that, been also preparing for Wisconsin Town Association events. We have one, the Walworth County unit that I chair, we're meeting this Thursday already. We're also getting ready for another one with the Tri-County, and I haven't yet cleared a hole in my schedule for Capitol Day to meet in Madison. I'm attempting to do that. That's the 30th. I think you all seen that in your town association newsletter. I do speak with the representatives quite often. This would be a little bit different where you actually go to their office. I'm gonna try to do that. We'll see. And then at last month's meeting, you asked me to correspond with the DNR on launch fees, appropriate launch fees for Lake Beulah. And I did finally get a response.
Parking fees?
Yes.
Right, for the non-boat?
The non-boats,
Non-trailer.
the people that come just with cars, for people that got
Yeah.
kayaks, you know,
Yeah, or just extra cars.
or
Yeah.
extra cars. And what I told, or asked of Lance Stock, he's the guy that, of course, manages the Powder Lake one. And I said, we were thinking of something like, $5 to $8, where is the guidance? And actually, it exists. It's NR 191. So when we do, probably next month, we'll authorize Jim to revise that ordinance, because in order to change the fees or add fee schedule, we have to do an ordinance change, so we have to notice that one up. But anyway, it's NR 191, and NR 191 basically goes into detail on what you can charge and what you can't charge. They don't say how little you can charge, but they do have a cap, reasonable fee. And they do index it against the entry fee to go into a state park. So you start with $8 for a daily fee. And then, size of boat, whether there's an attendant, all those things come into play. We haven't did this, a change on this for 5 years, 6 years, maybe?
Longer than that.
10 years maybe. So this would be a good one to look at it again, charging appropriate fee to make sure it's good. So that'll be coming up, but again, it's NR 191, which is quite detailed.
So we were planning to include an article about that in the newsletter as well.
I think we could
That
say
comes out
that,
in May.
we'll see if we're gonna have another special meeting. We have several things that we have to cover on additional meetings here. We have more issues than we can shake a stick at here. So I would say we would authorize Jim at the next available meeting date to do that. The request basically came from the attendants, it came from really anybody that works there. We did find a way to get these vehicles, the parking utilized properly in there. I think that'd be an advantage, so.
Todd and I had a discussion for ease for the boat launch attendants. We thought an $8 fee, which would match what kayakers and non-motorized canoes that they pay.
Yeah, I think just from reading that chapter, it seems like that's proper. But again, if we're gonna change the ordinance, you're gonna have to look at it anyway. But that would be, again, when I said we were thinking of 5 to 8, it definitely would be in that range, So $8 makes sense. And I do believe, Chief, you had mentioned keeping the rates the same for ease of enforcement, correct? Right, so, okay, that's all I have on my report. And I think that covers it. Okay, Department of Public Works, Todd?
Few things to cover. Everybody got notes from our wonderful February. But what we have to do is we got bids that need to go out for our summer road projects. For old roads, new roads, and our parking lot. And Jim has reviewed them. Correct?
In the paper on Friday.
Yep, and they're posted. So we will, tomorrow will be available, the road work for new roads, our slag and chip sealing, and our parking lot out here. Yep, slag or chip sealing, depending on how the quotes come in.
So they will be going out.
They will be going out tomorrow.
They're published in the paper and available for pickup tomorrow.
Yep, I'm just noticing it tonight. Got an update for Bob on the Shore Drive project. They're still holding their contract from last year to that price. They're, right now, it's tentatively start, I think it's the week of May 7th, weather depending again. And then, last month we brought up, or Dan brought up, for some remodeling projects for expanding the clerk's office for the court and for him. Did just a little quick thing and came to like $2,324 roughly. And there might be some miscellaneous stuff. Most expensive part is a glass partition window with a paste slot and all that. Cause she'll take the payments up there instead of having to come back here.
We have a discussion since this was all on. I'm just asking, have we priced those out? Is that like one of the best prices we found for that window?
That's one of the cheaper ones. I don't know if there's a way, that's the one that Dan seems to want, cause it's a little more protective than just a piece of plexiglass, piece of glass, or a sliding window. That's actually one of the cheaper ones, it's like $1,200.
Right.
So,
I've seen them 2,000.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan.
I was just asking because I didn't know, I just seen
Yeah, he looked online, I looked
most of
online.
the budget.
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that, like I said, that's about the most expensive part of the whole thing, is that, cause it's actually, I don't know, shatter resistant glass and,
okay,
That's similar to this one?
yeah, it's almost identical to the one here.
okay. Actually, you ran it by us last month, now we have an actual number. I think for you to be able to order that window and start getting your materials here, we need a approval of the board here to make that happen. So looking for a motion to approve that.
We don't have any room.
Yeah, this is gonna
Yeah.
be contingent
The
once,
police garage needs to be done, so we have room to move
Yeah.
storage.
Choose still approve.
What's the timing?
it's gonna depend.
You gonna go on
what
that? Okay.
happens out here.
All right, so we're not gonna, this is just what it's gonna be.
Yep, this was, I was told to get kind of a rough estimate together.
Okay.
and-
That was FYI then.
Yep,
Gotcha,
just
FYI.
informational.
Okay, I thought you wanted to order that.
Yeah, the window they have in stock, so. I
Okay,
mean, and the
it's
rest
not
of
a-
every- Yeah, nothing's a special order. The rest of it's just basic construction materials. And
Okay.
the Public Works Department doing all the work.
Okay. Now, when we get our bids on this, we're gonna have to look and see where, how it fits in our budget. What I mentioned to you is at Beach Lane, which is First and Second Avenue,
Yep.
there by Lindy's. Those were, when the subdivision was recorded, they were private roads, and I never found any action to make them a town road, other than, I believe, that stretch along Lindy's. Greg said, I believe you said also,
Yep.
that was paved like 10 years ago or
Yeah,
something?
10, 15 years ago,
Okay.
the first probably 750 feet roughly,
Okay,
to where it makes the corner.
yeah.
But after that, the road is gone.
Right, the east-west portion is gravel. And again, we don't have these on our state aids, because they are private.
Yep.
I do think if we're gonna add one or both of those roads, that'd be something we'd have to do when we do our application at the end of the year. We gotta get rid of Leppy Lane and
Yep.
possibly add this, as well as the extending the distance at the driveway for the, at the, compost site,
Compost site.
because we have only a portion of it. So, that is one thing, when we get those, we'll have to have that discussion, maybe have that as a agenda item, because I did not find any
Yeah.
record of that ever
I haven't
happening.
been able to find any either.
Yeah, and in 1992, both Jim Surgus and Greg said it was private, and I have found nothing to counteract that, so.
So
Okay,
we're saying Beach Lane.
Beach Lane or,
First and
you look
Second
at
Avenue.
some of the maps, it's Beach Lane, some are First and Second Avenue.
yeah, when it was platted, it was First Avenue and Second Street, or
Yeah.
vice versa,
Yeah,
but in effect, it's always been called Beach Lane,
yeah.
yeah, private, so.
So those residents are responsible right now.
Yes,
They-
they will be,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the question that we'll have to decide and talk with Jim on is, if we indeed paid for that stretch along Lindy's to be paved, we in effect have then, we're maintaining it, okay? And I guess we're maintaining it.
You'd have to find statutory authority like you found for Shorewood Drive
Correct,
to be able to even consider that.
correct, correct.
So should we be putting it out to bid?
I think we should get the number, if we could always eliminate that portion, that's a very minor part of this job.
Yeah.
It's, 800ths of a mile. And
But I'm
then-
worried about setting precedent.
About what?
Setting precedent of taking action on a private road without notifying the residents.
Oh, yeah,
And for
yeah,
Bob's
if,
sake, he
yes.
put a lot of effort into his work to get that.
mhm. Yeah, the question will become, whether or not, which way we're gonna go. I think that if that section was paved back 10, 20 years ago, or whenever it was, did that entail maintenance? And it probably did, but, it's possible also maybe that the adjoiners were charged in, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna do a little more research, saying it can always come off that bid, it could still be part of the bid package, but it still could be on a private road, so at least we know what it's gonna cost, if we gotta go to the residents and say, here,
Yeah.
it's gonna be whatever it comes back at.
Then we'd have to do a resolution to
Yeah,
make that
similar.
happen,
Yeah,
yeah.
So I think Bob came to us because they got a notice that in the next year or two, right?
snow plowing,
We
wise.
would
They're,
be
they're gonna end up,
doing snow plowing.
that
Did
first Beach
First
Lane
and-
probably will now, after this year,
Right.
will be the same thing, yeah,
Right.
'cause-
And what we do on the road work is we get the bids and we adjust it based on how they come in. There's times where we shorten projects and lengthen projects or added work, to make sure we maintain that budget. So, again, that's a very minor part of the 2023 road work, so I would think that that'd be something we're gonna have to look at and discuss. That'd be a future deal. All right, anything else that you need from us? We good? Okay, thank you.
What were the three, I'm sorry, Joe, Beach Lane, the compost drive,
Oh, yeah, the compost drive, only half of it's shown on the mileage map, and it goes all the way to the gate.
was there a
Okay.
third?
That's an extension. Whether or not First and Second Avenue, when we're talking about here, Beach Lane, that's the other one. And Leppy Lane come off,
Oh,
because that actually probably never was a road. It was some type of a glorified driveway. But unfortunately, the state highway maps show it, and they based it on our maps. So we discussed that with the state, and he said, well, if you got evidence, and we do have all the board meeting minutes and stuff, but I don't find, Schuller's agreement, but he obviously has an easement to get to his property,
yeah.
you know, on a gravel
We
road.
found through minutes and all that, where it was voted on to take it off
Yeah.
way back in,
92,
yeah, early nineties,
yeah, yeah,
but for whatever reason, it never got removed.
yep. That's why we go through it and try to find what's missing or incorrect, and every year, if we have a change, we make a change. And that's all we expect. Just like we added the, South Shore, because
Yep.
that was a lawsuit. In the lawsuit, the judge declared it a public road, and then we did our part of it to, the resolution, and we submitted it, and it's now on the mileage map, so. Okay, anything else? We're good. All right, thank you. Police report, Chief Gorecki.
Put a copy of the CAD summary report. I believe all of you got a copy. Didn't realize till today when I'm reviewing it. We'll just go to one copy of the year-to-date because it gives every month. For this month, we had a total of 589 calls for service, giving us a total of 1,215 calls so far for the year. Kind of all over the place, a little bit here, a little bit there. Nothing jumps off at me other than we're way up on traffic stops, 241 so far for the year. Doesn't necessarily mean citations, but definitely making more traffic contacts than we have previously. The other item, looking to get permission to talk to Mr. Mills about our ordinances. There's ordinances that we don't adopt, and the situation that came up was officers on a traffic stop, conducting his roadside investigation. Subject has a fake ID or false ID with them. More of an underage juvenile type situation than fraud that we normally think of. And the officer chose not to because we don't have an ordinance that adopts the state statute for false ID under 943 or under 125, which is the alcohol. Our ordinances don't adopt all the statutes. Now, I don't necessarily, not gonna write an ordinance ticket for homicide. However, in this situation, the officer made a good choice, I believe. Instead of locking the subject up and charging him with a misdemeanor, took the ID and let him go. But that's a situation where we clearly should be issuing a ordinance citation and doing proper enforcement that way. So just looking to be able to sit down with Mr. Mills and see if we can come up with a solution so we can get more state statutes adopted that we would be able to write ordinances for than the current ones we have. So,
Are you finding quite a few, or is it just?
It's really hit and miss, and the one that kind of jumped out at me is the chapter 125 stuff with underage drinking, having a fake ID on a licensed premise, those type of things. Specifically, the case I told you about would have been a 943 or traffic violation, and we don't even adopt that specific statute for having false ID on person. So that was a kind of a big gap that the officer was kind of stuck. He couldn't charge it, but it would have been a state charge of misdemeanor, and the situation didn't warrant that type of enforcement. So.
Okay, so actually, we should, again, you're gonna be spending some time. It'll take you a little bit of time to get ready for that. So again, at the next available meeting, authorize Mr. Milson.
Oh, it's posted.
Is it?
We have it noticed on here, we can do that right now.
Adoption of all states, oh, it is authorized, I didn't see that, sorry. So, we need a motion then to do that. We're ready to go?
I move that we adopt the state statutes.
No, you're
No,
authorizing.
you're
authorizing.
I'm sorry. I move that we authorize Attorney Mills to meet with the chief to authorize, to adopt state statutes.
All right, authorizing Attorney Mills to meet with chief to discuss the adoption of all state statutes. Is that what you said?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Bill, second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
Chief, one question.
Yes, sir.
About a quarter of the calls for service are under extra patrol or patrol. Can you give me one or two examples of what that might mean?
House checks, business checks, is pretty much what the extra patrols are. Once in a while, the officers, will put an extra patrol. If somebody calls in and says they're speeding by my house, they'll sit there and call that an extra patrol. Sometimes that gets counted under traffic, depends how the officer labels it, when they make the call up. but most of those are extra patrols pulling doors on people's houses or businesses.
Thank you.
But there is a category also of house check that has.
Yeah, it has to do with the way it's put into the CAD system. So, just like, you could have a bunch of family trouble calls that are actually domestic abuses. But they're put into the CAD by the dispatcher as a family trouble call. Some of them put them in as domestic abuses, so that's why on the sheet you'll also see family trouble call and domestic abuse. There should be, if you get dispatched to a family trouble call, and it is a domestic abuse, you should change your status because you usually are making an arrest in that situation.
So we're not double counting, it's just
No,
how it's
it's
classified.
just how it's
So there's
acted.
really.
Where does
that
the
many.
change need to be made? Does it need to be made at dispatch, or is it something we make?
Yes. The answer is yes, because if I look at the screen for our extra patrols or house checks, and I call it out, I'll be out on an extra patrol at 123 South 4th Street, then it's gonna go in as an extra patrol. If I say I'm gonna be out at 123 South 4th Street as a house check, then that's how it's gonna go into the CAD, whether the officer keys it in or whether the dispatcher keys it in. But it's not double dipping.
No, I meant with the family trouble and domestic abuse. Is that something, because we might get toned out for family trouble, you go and it's a domestic abuse.
Right.
Who is responsible for going back to change that?
Ultimately, it should be the officer's responsibility,
Okay.
depending on what the outcome is. And most of the time,
It
that,
is-
that does happen. Sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay, then we have one pier, like I said, we, tabled the Russell Pier permit till April. We have the Gnass Pier, Scott Gnass, Gnas. Is Scott here, by the way? There's Scott? No? Okay. This is a very simple one, and we do want people coming in when they make changes to their piers, so that what's on record is, you know, is a registered pier. This is a real simple one. What they're adding is a 4x10 flag at the end of an existing pier. It's on the channel, and the address of Mr. Mass is West 2120 Beulah Heights Road, I believe. So, I don't know if you've seen anything that stuck out to you on this one at all, or no?
I have not seen that one.
Okay, you didn't see this one?
When we
Okay.
talked the other day, I did not get a copy of
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
I kind of got what you said to me.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's a pretty simple one. Not a variance, it's just a change. So, I did talk to the owner of the pier because the sketch is kind of scribbly a little bit. But I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything here that I was misinterpreting, and all he's showing, I mean, he has a 110-footer shoreline on the channel, and somewhere in the middle of that property, he's adding a flag to the end of an existing pier. And it's 4 foot by 10 foot, so it certainly meets the ordinance, the pier ordinance. So I'd make a motion that the board approve that pier registration for Scott Gnass at West 2170 Beulah Heights Road.
I'll second.
So you have a second. Good discussion, any questions?
The only discussion I'm also back on the channel, but one of the big things is, what you can have for your distance on your property, if anyone's ever been back there, but the big key back there is as long as people can be traveling through there. The county has issues with, even though you can trim according to the DNR to have a navigable waterway, the county doesn't like it. Like, you know, like you have to permits and sign and who owns this, and so it kind of goes against, they have different rules, but the biggest part, I think, back there is able to be able to travel between the shore and whatever anybody's putting in, you know. Just as a note to self, it's a little different than being out on the water.
Okay.
Because
Also-
essentially he's extending it by 4 feet.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going past, I mean, well, according to this, it's kind of staying in line with what
with them.
It's like a shore station that's there. I just wanted to comment on it.
Yeah, the pier planner in our ordinance makes reference to that flag cannot exceed 200 square feet, and obviously it's 40 square feet. All right. So, in looking at the aerial maps of it, it looks proper, so. All right.
I just want to offer one comment. First of all, I never saw this until tonight's meeting. Granted, it is simple, but it is rough.
Yeah,
This
very,
is as rough a presentation as I've ever approved. I mean, at the front end, some quality control in terms of picture or description would be
Yeah.
the minimum.
yeah, that's why I called the gentleman to make sure that, I mean, all the numbers are legible, and the shoreline's legible, and his property lines are shown.
And I can agree with you, but if you look at what we're asking for, he does have everything we're asking for. It doesn't say it necessarily to scale or anything like that, you know.
He does.
On,
It's rough.
It's rough. It is,
but, I mean, maybe something we put on here, you know?
Gene, was there an existing permit on this one?
I didn't look.
You didn't look, okay. Yeah, the main thing I was concerned with is make sure he wasn't close to the adjoiner's property lines, and he's nowhere near that, you know, and he's not extending past the shore station, so. All right, any other questions? None? Okay, on the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. All right, Gene, you have the original, because you gave me your copy, so you
Yes,
have
I
the
have
original,
it.
you're good?
Sign it again.
Good.
And just for the board, it's not on the agenda, but we should be getting our new squad tonight, so I'll be stepping out hopefully to receive that. So, made a trek from Georgia for us.
All right, thank you. All right, East Troy Area Emergency Services District Report.
It's in the packet, and it's very brief because we have not had a March meeting, and our February meeting was much earlier than usual.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Barb? If not, we'll move on. Okay, Park Committee report,
Nothing to report.
nothing to report. Booth Lake Memorial Park report, Chad, would it be you or Kim?
will help me out.
Kim will help out, okay.
I was not there.
Someone was enjoying the sunshine. We held the lottery, we had a full room full of people, it was quite successful. So,
Okay.
other than that, the concession and house remodel are going very, very well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Lake Beulah Management District report, Greg Thomas?
I don't have a report tonight.
No report?
We're meeting tomorrow night for our first quarterly meeting of the year.
Okay. 2:14, 3:14. Okay, Recycling Committee report, John, anything?
Yes, the annual Town of East Troy recycling grant application for our use is scheduled for completion on the 21st of March. And so we'll be meeting on that at that time.
Okay. Library report?
Yes, this is from the 14 February 23 meeting, and the trustees approved the purchase of a chairlift for the library to transport disabled patrons from the entrance foyer to the lower level for programs and searching the lower level books. Number two, the 2022 DPI Annual Public Library Report was approved for submission. Number three, the board formally adopted the DPI Records Retention Schedule, but also will reference the Village of East Troy's retention schedule in situations that do not align with DPI. And the next library board meeting is 14 March 23 at 4 p.m. That's tomorrow.
All right,
That's all I have.
all right, thank you very much. Communications Committee report, Michelle?
The report was attached, you can see the first update was kind of a status update from the ad hoc committee recommendations. I know we kind of talked last month about the mission vision logo, and it looks like we're kind of going ahead and adopting a logo on the fly. I don't know if we need to authorize that as a board, or, but that was kind of outside of the communications committee.
That's not
So.
given notice, so.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right, so as you can see, we've been really busy.
Yeah, I guess so.
A lot of work done by the committee, very much appreciated. You can see, so last time I know we talked about video streaming, and we're currently using Facebook Live and the option of YouTube. If we pulled the research from the ad hoc committee, didn't see anyone using Facebook Live. We did some more research recently, not really anyone using Facebook Live. And then we also included the reference chart about the technical differences between Facebook and YouTube. YouTube has more options for video resolution, more options for the formats, you can record a longer meeting. So while none of us want to be here 4 hours or longer, it has happened, I think. And that's a limitation with Facebook Live. And then storage is longer with YouTube versus Facebook Live as well. And I know, speaking to Jim, that's one of the things that he may want to look into.
Yeah, later on the agenda, there's,
Got moved around a little bit.
discussion under 10A, discussion regarding amending records retention in regards to video recording. And I had mentioned to Michelle that I would like to get permission to speak with the Department of Administration that has a public records board that puts out a schedule of how long you have to maintain certain items. Now, we have a 90-day policy in our ordinance for recordings, but we only have had audio recordings in the past. And those records can be destroyed after 90 days, after the minutes have been approved. Now that we have audio and video, and because the board has never really said that the video is backup for our audio, I think all the board's ever considered is allowing people to view the meetings if they couldn't make it here.
Right.
I want to find out, since we've been recording, we might have to revert to the 7-year storage on the video.
And that was our recommendation, because we also
What's the
differentiated.
There is a 7-year.
Of the video.
We also differentiated that the videos, like you said, are not being used for recording minutes.
Right.
And it
So
was,
these matters are pretty fact specific, and I think the Department of Administration would give the greatest guidance in this. And if they say the video portion can't be disregarded after the 90 days, and if Facebook Live or Facebook does not have the capability of storing for 7 years, if that's what they say has to be done, then I think the board's decision is pretty much made. And you'd have to go through YouTube. But I'd like authorization to verify that.
so I guess there's a couple of things related to that. So that's one of the reasons why the committee was recommending that the board establish a YouTube page. But there are the other multiple reasons as well in that chart that's included in the packet as far as formats and clarity and things like that. To just establish a YouTube page now, we did find out, and it's included in the packet materials, that because it's a government site, we are not required to have 1,000 subscribers, or a 1-year page established. And apparently Town Web was misinforming, our team about that they didn't realize there was an exemption for government. So that's why we would like to recommend that the board authorize us to set up a YouTube page to just start the process. It doesn't mean we're gonna instantly switch over from Facebook to YouTube, but just start the process and figure out an orderly transition from one to the other in an effort to improve the quality as well.
What were the two things? No 1,000 users, what was the other thing you mentioned? Requirement?
The page has to be in existence for a year.
Oh, page in
was what the
existence for a
town
year,
Web told us.
and that's not true?
That's correct.
Oh, interesting.
Supervisor Klarkowski, I'd like to be recognized. That was me.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
The other thing I'd like to look into is you as the board, as custodians of town records, depending on how long this has to be stored, that burden falls on you. YouTube is under no requirement to keep them for 7 years. So the board's also gonna have to figure out what it is that the board can do to make sure that these videos are kept for 7 years. You don't have a separate contract with YouTube saying that they will keep them for 7 years. But that's gonna be your responsibility if that's what the Department of Administration determines is required.
I see there's notes that some people don't have any
7 out of 15,
retention.
so almost 50% of these don't even have live streaming.
Mhm, yeah.
Right.
There's none.
Right.
Yep.
But we're in a situation where now that we provide it, we have to deal with it.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
Yep, and then, so that, again, we would ask that the board, consider establishing the YouTube page to get things started. The other thing is, I know we are posting like the agendas and the packets now electronically, like we talked about in our update. And we would recommend that, we just kind of make that a policy, because today, like the postings in the lobby and at the fire district and at the boat launch, I think the language reads that, the information be readily available in convenient locations where residents would likely look for important information. I know that's a long-standing tradition, but in today's
Is
world.
our ordinance, and
Right.
they have to be public locations.
Right.
And I wasn't ever gonna put one in a bar, because Mr. Murphy might go to that bar, but Ms. Lois might not.
I'm asking to put them on the web page.
And we do.
Right,
But the
and I
legal
did see-
requirement is 3
Mhm.
public posting locations. We meet our legal requirement,
Yep.
but we
Yep.
also post online.
So I did look at that, at section 985.02 sub 2 sub A. That's the other thing, it does offer either 3 physical postings or
And then-
1 physical posting and an electronic posting on the webpage.
And as we've seen the last 2 weeks, with ice storms, power outages, internet outages, phone outages, that you cannot rely on the electronic format.
And I guess,
Therefore,
Yep.
I say we stick with the required law, but also we also offer it, we do
Mhm.
post on the website. But I
And-
don't wanna get rid of the 3 public postings.
and we're not proposing getting rid of the 3, we're just proposing, like, making it a policy.
And
that
we
But
it's
if we
always available.
make
It is
that
already done.
policy, what happens
can-
if we violate that
Right, if we make
new
it a
policy without intention?
Right,
I
without
with
mean,
the-
no electricity,
Sure.
no internet? I
Outage.
mean,
We just had one on
Yeah.
Friday,
Yeah.
Right, but it was short term, right?
but that was the day it has to be
Mhm.
posted. Right.
So we didn't know.
And
it
we
was gonna
didn't
be
know
short
if it was
term.
ever gonna come up.
Right.
So instead of
But they
making it
wanted.
a policy, just make it a standard practice. Because if you make it a policy and you don't follow through with it, and it's one of your official posting places, then you're not compliant with law.
And then we
couldn't
can't have a
meetings.
meeting.
Exactly. We
That's
couldn't
the
have
other
a
thing.
meeting.
Couldn't have it then.
When you have 3 physical posting places, you're meeting your legal requirement.
I think what the request is that we keep our legally required public postings, and then as an addition, it would go on a website.
Right.
And we do,
Right.
we
That's-
already do that.
Or
We
like
don't need those on the
all
website.
postings.
That's the request.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for all of our required postings.
it's being done,
So, including the quorums and things like that, yeah.
being done, okay.
So, I don't know
Did you
if
have
the
an,
quorums or
right,
all of the
an
postings.
example that was brought to my attention is with respect to possible quorums. And sometimes those are last minute, and it might be, well, you still have to do your 3.
My
And we do,
suggestion
and we
for,
do.
my suggestion for possible quorums is solving that with all official town committees having to put on the top of their header for their meeting,
Possible.
that if there could be a possible quorum. The planning commission does it, and then have that be a part of all official agenda postings, that there could be a possible quorum. No action, no business being done, however, there could be, just like the planning commission does in every one of their meetings.
I too think that's a good idea, but that's,
But as a
we can't
coverage,
vote on that tonight.
Right.
We have to vote on that.
Right.
was,
Mhm.
was the communications committee posted online, or was that just on 3 boards?
If we get the agenda, it gets posted online.
No, the
Quorum.
quorum.
I think that was one of the questions I heard about.
It
too,
was,
is how would
it
you know?
was posted.
It was posted, but not online.
Correct, that's what I think,
Right,
that's what,
because
that's
now
one,
we'll notice it's
that's
a quorum
one,
will be.
that's one, I think,
And-
why people are asking about this, cause
My,
how would I have known that, you know?
my
not
practice
anybody's
was,
fault,
my
but-
practice was to post every quorum in the 3 legal places
Sure.
and on the website.
Sure.
Until Mr. Jones complained there was no minutes for a meeting of a quorum. Well, there are no minutes because there are no agenda for that thing. Instead of clicking to see that it was a notice of quorum, he assumed because there was no minutes that my office was not doing our job.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about, that wasn't, that wasn't.
That's why we're
that
not
was-
posting
That's
notices of
why we're
quorums
not
on the
posting
website anymore.
quorums anymore on the website, because
So we're not,
Mr. Jones is
so
complaining.
we're not gonna post everything, just make it a normal practice, we're gonna only post.
No, we
The
post
agenda.
all meetings.
Why wouldn't you post notice of quorum on the website?
Because there
Because
was an
Mr.
issue.
Jones complained, because there were no minutes. There would be no minutes for a meeting, because there's no agenda, there's no town minutes.
Well,
there-
aren't we
So-
putting on the website the same thing you're posting in the 3 public places?
Not the notice of the quorum.
We were, I
Agendas.
was.
So how were, so where was the notice of the quorum posted?
On all 3 locations.
3 locations, and the one that Mr. Jones complained of, they used to be on the website.
So
Like
when I
Where,
posted the
on
notice
the
of the
calendar,
quorum
or, I don't understand how it was
When I
misinterpreted.
posted the notice of the quorum for the March 6th meeting, when they were tentatively, or was it the first?
February 27th, yeah.
Okay, whatever date. I posted it at the boat launch,
Mhm,
the firehouse,
mhm,
and in the vestibule.
mhm.
Those are the 3 official posting places.
And not on,
Okay.
No, because
okay,
it's a
so
notice
that's
of a
what I
quorum,
think, one of the question was, is we
but
just,
it's not a
whether-
meeting. It's not a meeting.
No,
It's a
it
notice
should
of a
be
quorum.
posted as a notice, not as a meeting, right?
Well, then, again, we used to do it. We don't any longer because of complaints by the residents.
Because
There
of
were
one
no
question.
associated packets or minutes with it, and there wouldn't be.
Hmm.
It's simply a notice
Just
that there
notice of
could
quorum.
possibly be a quorum present
Mhm.
at a meeting.
but couldn't we just do that as an explanation if somebody has a question about that, and then just make it
We
still
tried
normal
that.
practice with that? I mean, can we continue to try that?
Sure.
Just,
We can go back to it,
if you're
but
already doing it,
then we
great,
don't
awesome,
want
I
to
mean, that's,
entertain
that's
The
what,
board should make a motion
that's what the
as
request
to
is, I
what they
guess,
want to do,
not to make it.
Yeah.
too-
right.
and
So,
we can move on.
so there are,
You said it was
Three,
basically a business, I don't wanna say a standard operating procedure versus a ordinance requirement.
Correct,
And we're going above and beyond what's required,
correct.
and we're gonna continue to do that. I was unaware of the notice of quorum issue, I don't know where that came from, but,
That was at our meeting, Mr. Jones complained.
okay. he understands it now why it is.
I will wait for my public
Okay.
comments opportunity to tell you that that's not, I didn't complain about that.
Okay.
I'll explain it.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay,
So I guess, the first request was to authorize, the establishment of a YouTube page in anticipation
Point of
of a
order, Mr.
transition.
Chairman.
yeah, please.
So we are hearing a report of one of two March meetings, not hearing minutes, nothing approved. I don't think we can take action on any of these items until such time as they're, so we have a clear minutes conclusion, which is, as I understand, you don't do until after the second meeting. This is a report now.
This is a report,
Discussed
it's
at a
not
meeting.
minutes, agreed.
So I don't think this board should be taking any of these action items until such time as it's duly noticed, and it's just, it's not sequential.
Well, I think it's duly noticed,
Two
Right.
issues there.
but I would think that with 10A, the board might consider tabling it until I tell them what they
We
need to
What the law is.
Well, I didn't walk into the meeting tonight knowing that these three action items, we're going to take action on
And
these.
this is for.
It was,
Three action
Two of
it
them.
was clearly noticed on the agenda.
for
Two more,
possible
yes.
action.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what they're asking about, doing a quorum too on their meeting.
Right.
You know, that's a habit this board is getting into that frankly I find distracting in terms of business. But, okay, that's just me.
Okay,
Well, and
so,
I've officially requested that under the communications committee, it be noted as, possible review and action.
well, all items on here are for that, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
But this is for video streaming and storage, it's not for establishing a YouTube page.
Well, that was how I requested it in my email.
Yeah, I don't know.
The committee's job is to give options, give thoughts to the board. And that's what you're doing. You're giving us some reflections, some research.
And making a recommendation for the board to act on, which would be the normal progression.
But you're doing it in an unapproved minutes, in a report. I mean, your committee hasn't weighed in. They could change this report. They could change any of these recommendations. They could change any period or comma or content. Until these are.
There was an
until these
approved
are
motion.
Approved minutes, I do not believe we should be acting on them.
Okay,
So are my question is, the Communications Committee Report, March 2023, are these actual minutes?
No,
no, the report.
no, because we couldn't present minutes because we had a meeting on March 4th, or on March 6th, but the minutes are drafted, and in the meeting, we noted, similar like today, we would note, we voted on this and the motion passed. It's just the
Michelle,
final
I feel,
minutes.
I feel the pain here because it's the same with the planning commission. We've got 2 meetings a month, and sometimes after the first meeting, we've had all kinds of great discussion, we've made some conclusions, but we aren't ready to come to the board and say, approve this conditional use permit or approve this variance. Or, we can't do it because we haven't completed the work of the committee for the month.
Okay,
Okay, and I think, but that's
So
because you
it
didn't,
elongates what you're trying to accomplish. We should accomplish what you're asking us. But
Yeah.
the point of order is, this is not the correct sequence.
I guess I'm struggling with that because there was a motion made at the March 6th meeting, and the committee members had a motion, a second, and approval. So that is what is being brought to this meeting. And the minutes, the formality of that,
I think the bigger problem is if you're looking for a motion to establish a YouTube page, I don't think this notice is sufficient for that.
that's unfortunate because that was in my email as my request for the agenda.
people.
I mean, you'd have to say,
And I specifically said in my email
establish a
too,
YouTube page for the town of East Troy.
I did.
Okay.
But is that any
But
less,
that's not on
is that any less important than, the retention of video recordings, or is that any less important?
I think
The
they're tied
electronic
together.
posting.
They're
Well, there
tied
were
together.
three,
I think
yeah.
they're two separate issues.
There were
There's
three
separate issues.
items that I specifically requested to take action on.
Okay.
So
Or-
if advisory committees are gonna make requests of the board to take action based on their report, either their once monthly report or their 2 monthly reports, it's gotta be crystal clear. And to again tell me that because at the top of this agenda, it says in caps, discussion, consideration, deliberation, and possible formal action. I mean, that is, just, we can do better than that.
Well, that's no different
And I
than
got to
the
see it.
suggestion of bidding there could be a possible quorum on any committee that we have in the township. That's no different to put it on everybody's.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I
mean,
do.
if
It's-
we're just
but
having
Chad,
that
it's
request
like-
also.
It's like posting an agenda item to discuss referendums on passage of an ATV ordinance, getting nowhere on that, then passing the ordinance because it's listed there as possible formal action. I mean, that's disingenuous. We can do better. That's all I'm saying. Do what you will here tonight, but we can do better in terms of the expectation of the electorate for how we act.
You can't have a motion to establish a town YouTube page based on what's listed.
Okay, I think we've,
My apologies.
we discussed this, infinitum, it's good discussion, it's all stuff that we're gonna have to,
You wanna make a
To
motion
act
to
on.
table it to the next month?
well, we're gonna
Or just-
authorize you to do that portion, which to me is directly tied to this. I do think we need that information from you. I think we need to see all of the information on all of the pros and cons, you know.
It's there in the packet.
Well, it's not all there. There was one that was,
Pages.
yeah, yes, there was one that was handed out at your meeting where we had, Jen attend, and that's also pros and cons, and that's not in here. Not that that's gonna be contradictory.
Cut and paste.
This is very detailed. I don't know how you could get more detailed than this, I agree with that. But I do think that the answer that Jim's gonna get for us may answer this question, and we're spinning our wheels a little bit.
Which
It-
is a recurring occurrence for the communications committee. No matter how many times we improve it or change it or ask for specifics, we get the same pushback.
Well, I'm not looking at it as pushback, because what's needed to be done here is all things that we all agreed on. We had an ad hoc committee that did one hell of a job, put together a plan, okay? And this is part of it. This is part of it, okay? And I do think that Jim's suggestion is probably pretty appropriate here. I do think that first part should be tabled as far as the YouTube versus Facebook. And then the town policy as far as electronic posting, that's separate from this at all. So I do think we can act on that one, unless there's an objection to that. But I would make a motion that we do table the YouTube versus Facebook for video streaming and storage until we get the answer from Attorney Mills on that. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Barb, second. Discussion? I know it's frustrating. Do we have any further discussion? You kind of said a good amount on here that makes sense. I agree.
It doesn't matter what I say.
No, that's why we have a board.
That's why I'm a board member.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion on that? Okay, on the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Name.
All right, roll call vote, Clarkowski, aye.
Church, aye.
Wales, I.
Wilker, aye.
Reyes, name.
Okay, 4-1.
Mr. Chairman, just again,
It's done.
in terms of
I
time,
don't need discussion.
the next meeting is April 10th. What we don't approve tonight, because just not prepared to approve it, it's gonna get approved in 3 weeks. It's gonna be approved based on minutes that the committee has approved. You're not being circumvented or prevented. I believe brought this up at the February 27th meeting, that this board is somehow determined to make the communication committee grovel and not be successful. You
And I
guys-
think
you
the
guys
board
are
should
having
reflect on
quite
that.
a bit of success in an area that is novel to us. And overarchingly, I think you, all people should take pride in the fact that we are live streaming, that we have more information going out through newsletters and through live streaming than we ever had. And that is to the communication committee's credit.
As well as the first newsletter, as well as a modern website. Those are all success stories.
That's what I've done.
Those are all success stories. Still working on them? Yes.
As a point of order, at the April meeting, we will be presenting a draft of the next newsletter, which is scheduled to be published in May. So that will be included in the packet and noticed for approval at the April meeting as well.
Should go smoothly, just like it goes smoothly. Minor corrections.
We are considering kind of a two-page. We're getting the quote for that and using like an 11 by 17 sheet and folding it in half because it was fairly small font and small pictures and things, so we will have a quote for that and the draft as well.
And I'll put a little cover paragraph to lead into that, and I'll get that to you. Okay, we did discuss in detail here the updating of town policy to include electronic posting of all notices. I think we killed that subject. I think what we're saying is we're doing it, and we're gonna continue to do it. We're going above and beyond what the requirements are. The only question is whether or not the policy needs to be officially changed. I think we heard the argument on both sides of that. Are we done with that issue, or is there more discussion? Again, this is the,
We were saying we're tabling that also, aren't we?
no, that's separate. This is a separate request, discussion on updating the town policy to include.
Isn't that one of these questions you're gonna be asking the board?
No.
About
Not the
what policy should be?
This is postings.
No?
Retention.
The other one is record retention. Right. So, Jim, you heard the, all of the arguments here. As far as standard operating procedure versus policy, did you understand the part where if the electronic cannot happen, are we in, default, or are we gonna be,
No, you're not in default.
No.
You're meeting all the legal requirements.
okay? But,
The way we're doing it now.
let's, like you
I
said,
think the question is, do we amend our ordinance to say in addition to the three, do we add a fourth?
okay.
But if we
And
don't
then we're not
have that
able to.
fourth, does
We can't
that
have a meeting.
invalidate?
So,
no,
right, so that's why I asked, could we just try to do it again? And if people have a
That-
question with something, or that, that becomes an issue, can we just try to answer the question? Not that you need more to do, I'm not saying
Oh, so
that.
you're saying the quorum piece of it?
Yes,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
could we, if that's one piece we're missing and people are asking for that, you're already putting on the agenda, every agenda that's here, you put on the website already, correct? Is that
Yeah.
happening? So the quorum was one question I
So,
had
yeah,
been asked.
that's why we
That's right by
said
the wayside.
Instead of changing the
being
world,
done, we'd like
can
to
we agree to
document
do it for
Oh, sure,
Because we
absolutely.
think
all
it
of them
makes
on the
more sense
website?
today.
Because somebody did ask me, well, how would I know that? And I said, I assumed, I know there was
You go
posted
back
in
to
3
do it all the
places,
time.
but
Not a problem, and
Okay.
it's not,
it's just one of my suggestions, if you don't wanna make it a whole new resolution, and make it a part where we can't have a meeting, we still do our 3 postings, but could we possibly make sure that it's
I
also,
think you could still have a meeting with the three public
Right.
postings.
absolutely.
But once you, depending on the wording of the ordinance, I don't know if it's necessary to go on the ordinance.
Right.
But I understand the request is for a written policy of sorts.
So essentially though,
I
you're
see what
saying,
you're saying.
you're happy with the
That's
way
the
it
best
is, other than the fact you
practice.
just want the notice of the quorums
okay,
put on.
And it's a best practice, and we should,
yes.
yeah, let people know that's what we do. Yeah.
And again, I think that we can get away from the notice of the quorum for things other than like a WTA meeting or something like that. If we make it a
Include
point
that
at next month,
language.
if we include that language on every official committee's agenda.
That's probably a
Then
good
we don't
idea.
have to do those notice of quorums for things like that, but say there's a fire district meeting and you guys are all gonna go because something important is being discussed, then it would be an official notice of a quorum to be put on the website, like you said, as well as posted in the 3 official sites. But I think we can get away from having to post that, like we don't have to post a notice of a quorum for a planning commission meeting. It's part of the agenda,
It's part
it's
of, it's
noticed.
noticed. And I believe this is a little bit rare because, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the only communications meeting you had where Chad or Bill were at? Yeah, so it's kind of
But
a,
there's already 2 board members on that.
right, what I'm saying is this is not a common occurrence.
Right.
Just to say, hey, what's going on?
Sure.
You know, just
That's
like-
exactly what I did. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. I think we,
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one question of Mr. Jones? Is there anything, in terms of public comment, is there anything that you need to add at this point in terms of posting and quorums that would help the discussion?
No, I just think it should be added to the website.
Okay, thank you.
okay, next item on the agenda is the planning commission report. Supervisor,
There's no report because we did not finish the business for both conditional use permit or the variance. We'll finish that business on Wednesday night and I'll report at our April 6th meeting.
okay. All right, first public comment period. Again, 3 minutes. You might as well start because you're good to go.
Since it was brought up, my name was brought up like 5 times here tonight by Kim. You will recall that in June is when I first started to come to meetings. You will recall that when I got up here and talked at that time, that I came out of the private sector and I was trying to get a little more knowledgeable about the town, right? And so I was looking on there and there were no packets. And so I think I asked in June, there was no packet. And then I asked in July and there was no packet. And then it was August and a packet showed up, okay? First one I saw, and I went back and looked at others. I mean, I didn't intend on addressing this tonight, but if my name's called out, I gotta talk about it. What I was asking at the time was purely helping me to understand where I can find information, and I think that's what the electors meeting in 21 asked, is just where do you find information? So I have no problems with a notice of quorum being put on the website without a packet. I just didn't know that it wouldn't have a packet at that point, so.
We'll have a packet or minutes.
Just a notice.
Right.
I think he's got that now.
I just, maybe it just needs to be notices, a title
Yeah.
of notices instead of town board meetings or special meetings. That would maybe help that problem. I did want to shout out Kim for putting in for the last 2 months the treasurer's report. It's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's very hard to keep notes on something verbally stated, so I did want to bring that up. And your suggestion about putting the Tri-Troy Alliance summary in the newsletter, Great Minds Think Alike. I think it looks like it's a very positive organization. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't want to promote, here's the successes we've had, and even if it's once in a while in a newsletter, or once a year or twice a year, you report out that, hey, we achieved these things.
Okay.
I think it's a positive thing. It sheds good light on the town and the 3 municipalities. So that's all I had.
Thank you very much. Public comments? John? Stos?
So I'd like to touch base on the communication committee a little bit if I could. I think the communication committee is doing a good job. They are being tasked with doing a lot of difficult things, and they're wading their way through it, and I think in the end, it's gonna come out the way the public wants it. Last month, I came up here and made a request that we address to identify the meetings to be recorded for the people that use this facility. And it was put on the communications committee agenda, the one dated on February 27th, and I was at that meeting. I did record it. It is on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. And the item did not get brought up. It got tabled, and it was just kind of a ran out of time type deal. So I went back to the annual meeting And I quoted you, Joe, because I took the recordings, and on the annual meeting from 2021, it was brought up, and you said it should be automatic, that anybody that uses this facility, that the meeting should be broadcasted over the internet so people at home can view them. And then there was actually a motion made, and I put that video up on Informed Citizens as well recently, and basically the motion passed, and I just want, while you guys are having all your reviewing and Mill's checking on this and checking on that, that we can check on that or get a motion or some kind of either a ordinance or a motion, just something so we can get some dialogue going on that, because it's important, because there's a lot of people that are texting me as I'm sitting here that are watching this at home right now, and they want to be able to see what's going on in the town hall here. So that's all I have for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I do believe we addressed that one item that you mentioned about meetings at town hall, town meetings.
No, all meetings that are taxpayer funded, that you said it should be automatic, and there was also a motion on it at the annual meeting, and at the annual meeting, there was a vote, and I know it's advisory, but that's the will of the public, that's the will of our electors.
Yeah.
So if you wanna look at it, it's on you, it's on my, Informed Citizens, you
Okay.
can watch it.
All right, and again, that's, yes,
One quick comment. I did look at Jen's chargeback rates, and we would have to charge each of those entities, whether it's Potter's Lake, Lake Beulah Protective and Improvement, a minimum of $85 per meeting.
That's fine, that's wonderful.
okay, and that's only the part of it. The other part is they would have to request that. So you gotta go to those meetings and say, hey, how come you guys ain't doing it? If we get a request from those entities, we can't force them. We can't say you're
Right,
doing it.
so if you're letting them use your facility, this is our facility here,
Mhm.
and we are letting them use it, and they are being funded by the taxpayers who also fund this,
Mhm.
and the taxpayers wanna watch these meetings like they're watching right now, they're sitting at home watching right now. Why are we giving $200,000 of money to certain organizations in the community here, and no one has access to see what they're doing?
Okay, I think what I'm hearing here is we need another discussion with the board for this, that. The questions that I had, Kim answered one of them, what would that cost be? And number two, it hasn't changed that they are not town, we have nothing to do with the management districts of either lake.
Right, but
Okay.
the electors want, whoever uses this facility, they want that to be shown because they're paying for it. We're giving up our facility to them, which is fine, but then let us at least be privy to what you're doing there.
What if the Boy
Show
Scouts
me.
come in?
Yeah, again, that's,
It's gonna have to,
Those
any further discussion would have to be
Yes.
noticed.
yes, we're going into the weeds, what I'm saying is yes. And matter of fact, that's on one of my future,
I'm just trying to lay the groundwork so it happens, that's all.
yes,
Thank you.
understood. Okay, public comments, anyone?
Hi, everybody. I'm gonna shift the tone here a little bit and talk about something different tonight. Danielle Foster, N9304 Beulah Park Road.
9304?
Yep.
Beulah Park? Okay. Thank you.
My name is Danny Foster. I think most of you guys know me. I am a social worker. I am a mother to 2 children. My daughter's in 2nd grade and my son is going to be in kindergarten next year. And I'm also our elementary school's PTO president. I'm here today to show support for our upcoming referendum that will be on the April 4th ballot. The school is asking the community to vote on an operational referendum. Tax-wise, for most of the people in our town, for the average property owner, this would equate to something less than $2 a day to support an operational referendum. As we speak right now, the school board is actually exploring what those cuts would look like. So I do encourage everybody to also watch the recording of that video. I was there earlier. And inform yourself about what this means for our community. We have only passed 2 referendums in the town of East, in the Troy area in the last 20 years. The last was in 2015, and it funded building Little Prairie, where my daughter goes to school right now. And then prior to that, an operational referendum was passed in 2006. In 2022, 106 school districts passed referendums in our state. 76 of those were operational. Our referendum is not to build a fancy new school or a pool or anything like that. It's to sustain and maintain the current level of programming and staff that we have today. If this does not pass, $2 million will be cut from the budget. I want you all to think about the impacts to the staff. Our students, over the last 16 years, our school district has cut over $10 million in budget balancing efforts. The time is now that we come together to support our students, our community. I hear a lot, we don't want higher taxes. No one wants higher taxes. But we want a local thriving school district. And so I ask the board to please think about this, share information with our constituents in the town of where they can educate themselves to make an educated vote on April 4th. We have a choice. We can choose to support our school districts, we can choose to keep our kids here, or we can choose to make our district less desirable than our neighbors and force the hands of families who don't want to sacrifice that for their kids and will send their kids to Mukwonago. Every time a student goes to a different district, a public school district, $8,000 follow them, and even more if a child has special needs. Those are our tax dollars going to benefit our neighboring districts that are leaving here. And if our school districts continue on this path, our money will go there too. Thank you.
Right. Danielle, thank you for coming to our meeting. That was very helpful. Another perspective, and it was very good.
I don't know if we can share about, there's a community session that will be held here on the 28th of the month. There will be local leaders and school district representation for the community to come and ask questions and have a kind, respectful discussion so that we can make informed choices on the 4th.
So it's
And you're going to send me information about what time?
Yes, 6 p.m.
Thank you.
6 p.m. Tuesday, 3/28 here. I'll be at an ICC meeting, as I told you, in Warwick County, but
If
staff,
other board members could come, it would be greatly appreciated.
thank you. All right. Okay, hello.
Hi, my name is Dr. Isla Guild. I live at W2495 County Road ES in the town of East Troy.
Can you spell your name for me, please?
It is AYLA GUILD.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I come here today as a community member, as a mother of 2 children in the district. I'm also speaking about in support of the East Troy Community School District referendum. I'm also a business owner. My husband and I own the Hive Tap Room on the other end of the town of East Troy, and we've chosen very deliberately to start a business here in 2018, and we cherish this community that we've become a part of. We've been living here since 2018. As you guys all are aware of, this operational referendum for the school district is a really important investment, not only to continue operations for the school, but it's really an investment in our community, our local businesses, and our property values. And so I want to present a perspective of a business owner and what does it look like if we don't have a thriving school that can't afford to pay teachers to stay here, and we have this trickle-down effect. What does it look like in a community without a thriving public school? What are all the ways a healthy public school supports local businesses? In addition to high school students being employees and really learning and gaining the skills to become really helpful employees for their future. Think about all the people that come in for sports events, the locals and non-locals alike. They're coming and supporting other service industries like our company. Specifically, there's no surprise that hiring and employee retention since COVID for the service industry has been a real challenge. But what I tell every employee when they are hiring is that you're going to fall in love with East Troy and you're going to want to move here. If only we could find a house to buy. Without a strong school, our ability to retain those employees and my ability to sell East Troy is going to diminish. They're not going to want to move here and start a family here if there's not a strong school. That's going to increase the turnover in an already struggling industry, service industry. The people that work for us, a lot of them don't own homes, they're renting, with the hope to buy as soon as they can. And so I'm thinking about this population that they're wonderful, they'd be wonderful additions to our long-term community, but they can't stay here if there's no good school for their growing families. It's gonna make running a business in East Troy much more challenging, and we wanna grow businesses in this town, not shut them down. So-
We do have another public comments a little later on, if you're not complete. Was that all of it? I'm not
I
rushing.
have one final
Go ahead,
statement. Okay,
please.
I urge you to think of the ramifications of the schools not supported and vote yes April 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayala.
Hey everybody, my name is Brett Foster, N9304, Beulah Park Road, East Troy. Not to beat a dead horse here with the staying on the same topic here, and by the way, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you guys tonight. Try to keep it sweet and concise. As a former student of East Troy, a parent with two small children, well, one who's in East Troy, one who's about to go to East Troy, local IT consultant, I just want to speak a little bit in support, again, of the referendum. You know, I kind of waded into the waters of social media, regretfully, just to see kind of what the opposition's voice was regarding all of this. And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation going around. A lot of people seem to think, oh, if we don't support this or we don't say yes, somehow, maybe if the school district dissolves or whatever, our tax, now we get to save our taxes. And it's just not true. As she said, my wife stated, you know, those tax dollars will follow the student to the district. So now your tax dollars are going out of East Troy instead of staying in East Troy. You have less of a say of what's going to happen with these students' education. And it's just kind of, you know, your resources are no longer local. And to hear some people also echoing, sadly, national talking points about what's happening in public schools, and they're indoctrinating students with this or that, or, you know, trying to tell me what my kids are learning. I'm very involved in my children's education. I don't think that national politics have any place in local politics. That's just a personal opinion. I feel like that kind of was always the way in the last few years. It's really gotten muddied for no good reason. But I can say that between that and other, you know, neighboring constituents who have a vested interest in their own private schools, whether they are religious institutions or not, also out there speaking in misinformation against the East Troy public school system. Not gonna point fingers there, but people who could potentially lose their tax exempt status because they're trying to influence local elections. Between all of that, I still think that we have a vested responsibility for our kids, for our school district, for our property value, for everything else to support this referendum. I hear a lot of people say we don't want to be Mukwonago, and yet the same folks are seemingly okay with sending all of our tax dollars over to Mukwonago if this does fail. East Troy School District has cut $10 million from their budget in the last 16 years. If this referendum fails, an additional $2 million will be cut. You know, a lot of these people who choose to send their kids to private schools in East Troy, those schools are dependent upon the East Troy School District to supplement the services that they cannot provide, like buses and everything else. So they are not immune to this. You'll also be impacted. For homes that are about $350,000 or more valued, this would be about $1.35 a day just to support it. I do realize I'm rambling a little bit. I appreciate your time. I really just hope that the board members and anybody who happens to be hearing this can vote yes in April and help the school district. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, do you have any idea how many children actually go to the Mukwonago School District that live in East Troy?
I've never asked that number. You know, possibly?
I can't speak to how many students are enrolled in the Mukwonago, but we have over 1,400 students that are enrolled in East Troy right now that would be impacted by the cuts.
So how many of the $8,000 kids are we losing to different schools?
More every year. It's already happening.
Frankly, I think the school district does a remarkable job. I support the referendum. I'm just curious how much money is leaving.
I think that is a really good question that I can write down and we can share on the 28th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you also need to say that the school district is the biggest employer.
Correct. Yes. It is the biggest employer in our community.
and a lot of people who live here work there.
All right, any other public comments? Anyone?
I want to thank the board for the road that we're finally getting. I've been in conversation with Todd. Shorewood Drive residents are going to have a meeting on the 25th to discuss the details of the road. As much as we're grateful for the road, I think there's some things that still need to be cleaned up in regard to our road and the project. I was out of town last month and I missed the meeting. And the month before in January, I asked, you guys had a road packet, and I asked everyone to turn to the page and let me know how Shorewood Drive was labeled. I believe everyone said private in their road. So we met with Chief Gurecki and asked, there's a dispute between a neighbor wanting to use our road, saying it's public. There's an unfinished lake access that's notated as private as well. And I understand that there's no enforcement that can be had for trespassing on that road. I'm correct in saying that? Okay.
Yeah, piece of property you were specifically talking about, yes.
Yeah, and the road. But yet, when we had an agreement for snow plowing services for private road that was drafted up, the last part of that paragraph says, further, private road residents consent to allow the town on the private road to conduct said service and will not claim or attempt to claim that the town or its agents, employees are trespassing when performing said service. How do you expect me to sign something that says that you guys aren't trespassing when you can't even enforce trespassing, and I've asked to do it? There's nothing that's been said.
On our services or no?
That was just.
There's your answer.
You're going, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, I've asked to enforce the trespassing, and I'm told that that can't be done. And I'm asking how that can be done, because the other issue that came up is there's a lot that's across the street from my house that's gonna be subdivided. The owner of that lot, the new owner's already reached out to me as, I guess I'm the spokesperson for our road. This is just me personally, but he wants to tie the driveways into Shorewood Drive. So, that's gonna be part of our road meeting. It's yet to be determined if he can do that. I don't think there's a lot of buy-in from the residents on our road, but if he takes his construction trucks, the concrete trucks, the lumber delivery trucks, down our freshly paved road, how do we tell those guys they can't do it? It is a private road. Where do I go? And as far as like having the road blocked off for 24 hours, where does that block need to be? Where do I need,
You'd have to go to circuit court and get an injunction.
where do I need to rope the road off? Where does that tie-off need to be on our road for 24 hours?
And then I don't know if that statute still lists it that way. I know on Seminary Road and on Buell Park, Island Drive.
Because there's signs posted that says private road. Can that be anywhere on the road that we block that off so you can't get through the whole road?
I think
It's a legal question I can't answer for you.
I can tell you it's already done. There already is a block off that's been closed for 24 hours every year on our road. Gene Coleman at the end. Thank you.
very end of the road. Thank you, Bob. Great. Public comments? Anyone? We have another period a little later. We good? Okay. All right, moving on. Under unfinished business, approved emergency response plan. We had a couple meetings on this. We had a lot of back and forth of getting it refined. I do believe, and we can ask everybody that's here, if they had any final changes. I only seen one thing on the last review, and that was on the top of page 35. And what it should say, after Public Works, similar to the previous page 33, after Public Works should say DPW superintendent or designee. That's the only thing I found in here, and I guess anybody else in their review, if they found anything. Barb, nothing else, Bill, nothing else?
No.
Good, Chad, nothing? So I did ask Jim at a conversation in the past here, should we go ahead and send this to the county and let them review it? Because ultimately, the county emergency operations manager, if you want to call him that, he has to sign this, and the question is, do we give him a draft and say, go ahead and review it and send it back to us, or do we, if we're done, this is our finished document, we sign it, send it in, and let them do what they're gonna do? I don't know if there's anything
My
Uh,
advice is a letter. Approve it as a board, sign it and send it in.
Yeah.
And I will note that when the county emailed me for an update, they were very excited that I told them it was gonna be approved tonight.
Oh, okay.
I got a yay.
Yeah, and Chad, you had some discussions with the county also, and we're not alone, there's a lot of them that are,
No, I thought I was a pretty bad student, and evidently I'm not the only one. So I think that we're ahead of the game than some of the county also,
Right.
so, yeah, no, I'll make the motion right now to approve it, send it to the county.
I'll second.
all right, we have a motion and a second, discussion,
Yeah, I'd like to thank Chad for his
jumping in
amount
there.
of work on this.
Well, and I also wanna make the comment too, and Gene in helping us, get that together, we really appreciate it, this is a pretty big plan, there was, and everybody, the chief and Todd and everybody meeting, all taking the time to meet. A little more extensive than what we thought at the very beginning, but I think it turned out pretty good, so.
I do too, and, again, you're the emergency government CEO, and when you got that title, you're going, well, what the heck is that?
Yep.
And there wasn't much going on, and of course, some of that was due to COVID, okay? And they got back on it and said, where is it? And we jumped right on it, and I think we got it done pretty quick, so.
Yeah, Lieutenant Rowland's doing a good job. I've gotten many more emails, and, you know, COVID was a big deal, but there hadn't been much going on in quite a while, but, that ball is rolling again, so.
Okay,
Chad, any idea if the county's planning for follow-up exercises, tabletops, scenarios you're gonna run through?
I have not,
Training on the
there is training, there is so much training that gets sent to me, unfortunately, like, I have not made any, but it's all over the board. I mean, I think anything that's available for training, you know, Lieutenant Rowland is sending that out to everybody. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is during the day, and like most people, I still have work, you know, so.
but you got a good team.
Yeah,
You did.
yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, motion carries 5-0. You don't have to authorize me to sign it, because tonight all of us are gonna sign it. There's, 5 signature lines here, and it'll be dated today, so we'll be done with that.
And I'll make that change to it and just change that page.
Yeah, there's one page, nobody else had anything else, so we should be good. Okay. Okay, next item, approve RFP for police garage. We kind of morphed this deal a little bit here, after the discussion with, some contractors and looking at the, Village of Eagles Police, Administration Building Garage. And, kind of come to the conclusion that we could probably and most likely get a better bang for the buck by going to the design build method of delivery of this project versus the design bid build. It is just a matter of delivery, you still get the same product, but we also went to a post-frame construction. And I was a little bit leery of that until I looked at a couple of these buildings, including touring the one at Eagle. And they were called pole buildings in the past. You can't make that differentiation by looking at these at all, inside or outside, at all. And we can definitely, after, you know, the police, staff all looked at this and were part of the floor plan and some of the specific building requirements. Obviously, we're gonna get, the board will get a kick at this, but we're gonna probably have a lot of interest in this. I don't know how many you talked to, Todd, at least half a dozen, more?
Right now, I talked to 9 contractors, and there's 9 that want to take it on.
Okay.
And that's just by phone call, that's before it's even going out.
Yeah, so this will get some serious traction, you know, and I'm not quite sure, you know, I mean, interest rates are rising, building costs are coming down. This is the last thing on our campus to have a 25-year fix. We don't have the 75, but we have 25, maybe 30. And this would take care of any of those major investments in this property. All of it's good. So the last changes were really minor that I had, that I shared with Todd and Jim and Kim, and that was, at the title page, there was one issue of what we called it,
Yeah.
open
So
up.
they're all made and everybody got a new copy tonight.
Okay, so the last changes were just, the first page is just, instead of open up the design build, no, this is a design build contract. And then the construction administration can be by the contractor, it's gotta be by the owner, so we added that on page 4, number 4, that's by owner. And a lot of this is gonna be Todd and I. If we think we're gonna need any additional help, we'll certainly go get it. But this has a good chance of being more hands-on than any job we probably ever did. So that'll be good. And then the other thing I added on page 4 under D, where Jim added, all the applicable state codes, I added the sentence, contractors responsible for all project superintendents, just to ensure that the contractor knows that there's no contact that really occurs from our town to subcontractors in any way, shape, or form. It goes to the prime contractor, period.
What
And-
item, Joe?
Pardon me? That was 4D, you added a sentence.
That's 3D.
Page 4.
Yeah, but it's 4D.
4D.
Because it would be 3D then.
Oh, that got,
Yeah, that's all, just top.
you got it?
Fourth line.
Okay. Fourth line. Oh, okay, all right, and the last thing was, it was really a grammatical deal on page 6, the fee proposal, the town may request, not my request. Again, minor. I'm gonna make sure that one is in there.
Wait,
That's in there.
where was this one? Oh, 4.01, selection criteria?
Under fee proposal. 4, fee proposal, the town may request, second sentence, the third
Oh.
sentence, town may request.
Yep.
Previously was just MY, spell check, of course, wouldn't catch my.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, well, and Jim had his final kick at it, Kim had, I had, Todd looked at it. And again, a lot of this would help from, other contractors that responded to previous RFPs, and most of these people that are doing this, that's the majority of their work, okay?
I do have some
Oh, yeah,
concerns. Again,
dates.
I don't know that we authorized Jim to look at this, but apparently he's done it. The 1.03, the schedule of events. I don't think the RFP is gonna be issued today yet, technically, right? It's tomorrow at the earliest,
It would be put out there,
yeah.
correct?
But in my experience working with proposals, I would give them, maybe a week or 10 days at the most to submit questions, because the way we have it here, we're not gonna give them the answers to the questions until April 7th, and then they have to submit their proposal by
days.
April 10th, which is Easter weekend.
Right.
So they need more time with the questions and answers to finalize their proposal. So I
I would
would
agree.
suggest changing like the deadline for questions to like March 25th or, I don't know, next Friday or 24th, I think.
That Friday, and then questions can be addressed.
The 24th.
The
24th,
24th for the
That's good.
deadline for questions, and then we need to send out the responses by that March
We can get our
31st.
answers sooner than,
March 31st.
that's what you're saying.
Yep, I agree.
That's
April 1st instead of 7th.
So the first
March
line,
31st, I think, would be the Friday.
yeah,
So change the first one to March 14th,
Correct.
second one to March 24th, the
Correct.
third one to March 31st.
correct,
Yeah.
It was on the paper,
right, and that gives them 10 days to finalize their proposals.
but it's already, like, in the office.
Okay, and I would ask
Paper 2 weeks.
further that Todd, with the people that you talk to, go ahead and give them a call and just tell them, hey, it's out there. I mean, if you already told them the date, fine, but if you didn't,
They've already wanted me to give them stuff, so I'm like,
Well, that's the other thing that's important, that once this RFP is issued, we do not answer questions verbally. We probably should have contacted them in the first place, because that's the point of the written Q&A, is that all of the respondents have the same information and can prepare an apples for apples proposal.
Correct.
That's my concern, the only concern on the design build, or, that we're gonna have to make sure we really look at those proposals, because they may propose different options, and so we're not necessarily gonna be comparing apples to apples, so maybe we can't automatically go with the low-cost bid, and that needs to be documented, because I think state
Correct.
procedures, if you put it out for proposal, you gotta do the low-cost bid, but we gotta show that there's differences in quotes
You're right.
to,
In a minute, we give them a target number that does then open the door for them to propose their own efficiencies. And you have to say what those are. I mean, they're gonna have to say what we have, you know.
When I talked to the contractors, I just gave them, we have a basic floor plan, this is the size, are you interested? I didn't give them any specifics except that.
But they do know it's a post-frame construction.
Well, they will once they get this bad boy. That's right there.
Yeah, it is. So those changes have to be made, and I'd have to come in here tomorrow morning as soon as it's done. I do have a meeting in Milwaukee in the middle of the day sometime. So as soon as it's available, I'll shoot right over here. Okay?
Or just
Change
come in the
the
morning.
deadline for when the answers are given too?
Yes,
March 31st.
yeah.
yes.
And then
I don't
we're,
have control of that right now.
did we fill in 5.03, are the questions gonna go, who are the questions going? Oh, that's for them to submit,
Yeah, when
Yeah,
they submit,
contractor
they have to say who we can contact.
yeah.
That's establishing their point person.
And they're submitting the questions
believe to me-
to-
The bids come to Kim, I think the
Bids,
questions
right.
come to me. And then I'll be in contact with probably Todd and Jim if there's anything
Okay.
flaky on that, so. Okay, that's where we're at, I think,
You need a motion to approve it?
we need a motion to approve the RFP as presented.
With
With
modifications.
changes.
Present.
And we'll list those changes.
March,
Timeline.
the RFP issued March 14th.
Yep.
Deadline for questions, March 24th. And Q&A emailed participants, March 31st.
To make sure March has got 31 days, yes, okay.
It does.
Okay, and there was no other changes.
Well, there's spelling on
That one,
on 3D, page 4.
oh, okay.
She doesn't like how you spell superintendents.
Did I spell it?
Because he spelled it incorrectly.
Right. Oh, you mean my note? My handwritten note doesn't?
I didn't see any that I was drawn on.
Oh, okay,
Can read all the changes, but that's spelled wrong.
okay. Spell check, hopefully catch that. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I don't think we have a motion.
You have a motion.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve, including the corrections, for the request for proposal for the professional design build services for the town of East Troy Police Garage Building.
I'll second.
All right, Chad, a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None, motion carries. Very good. Again, in your call. All right, next item on the agenda is agreements with WSDOT and the Village of East Troy for State Trunk Highway 20 project. And Jim was authorized at our, probably at the meeting that we had with the, I think it was prior to the Saturday meeting, right? That's when we did it. And I asked that Jim review both, or we asked that Jim review both of those agreements. One of them is a agreement with the State Department of Transportation, called SMMA, State Municipal Maintenance Agreement. And the other one is a intergovernmental agreement between the town and the village. Back in 2015, the town signed a resolution for an exception to Trans 75 for an absence of need. In other words, we didn't want a sidewalk on the north side of Highway 20 where the frontage is basically the cemetery. And everything was good until about a couple months ago, when the village was signing their SMMA, they said, let's put that sidewalk in there anyway. And we'll do an agreement with the town, and we'll take care of it. However, if you have an ordinance that says, you know, one of plows the snow, they're gonna have to do it, or we're gonna attempt to make them do it. And that was all good until we got the state agreement. In the state agreement, again, this is for a sidewalk we didn't want. State agreement makes us responsible for, in the agreement, for snow and ice removal, and of course, that would, then my ordinance go back to the property owner, which would be the cemetery. It says, however, town will first seek compliance with the property owner, because we have that. But the state SMMA says the town, and if we don't do it, we could lose GTA, our state transportation aids, says if we don't do it, the following that could happen: maintain storm sewer, that's a problem, curb and gutter, cut grass, and have a street sweeping program. Cutting the grass is not an issue. The cemetery maintenance manager or site manager says they cut the grass anyway between the curb and the cemetery fence. They are gonna eliminate a parking lane in there, so there'll be more grass, which leads to the second problem. The guy at the cemetery said, well, we don't plow snow in the cemetery. If there's a funeral there, the funeral director hires a guy to dig the grave and somebody to plow the roads. So they don't plow roads, but if they had to, sounds like they would. They probably don't prefer it, because what happens is you'll get this sand, salt, slush mixture, whatever, blown or scraped onto the sidewalk, and then the cemetery has to get rid of it. The only place they really can get rid of it, likely, is towards the cemetery. There's more room there now, but they had a big problem with putting salt on these, you know, monuments, the granite, whatnot, the concrete bases too. So that became the issue of saying, okay, are we gonna sign this or are we not? So Jim did his research of looking at these two agreements, and I believe you also got in contact with Brian Roper, who's gonna sign the agreement? Okay, so I guess let us know what you think about the two agreements, as well as how the discussion went with Brian Roper.
Well, my discussion with Brian Roper, my first question was, what happens if the town doesn't sign the state contract? And his response was that the project might not happen. I don't know whether or not that's likely or not, but that's what I was told. And then when I pointed out certain items of the contract that the town could not implement on its own, for example, the street sweeping program, how to maintain the storm sewer if there's a clog. We don't have a vac truck that I'm aware of. Said, we'll just get the village to do that for you. Well, okay, well then our intergovernmental agreement with the village has to change to say that they will hold the town harmless for all of the responsibilities of the state contract. And that would be my advice moving forward. You cannot sign the state contract unless the intergovernmental agreement is changed to say they'll hold us harmless for everything that we're responsible for in the state contract.
Yeah, I thought we were even gonna almost add it as an addendum, rather than
Yes.
rewriting the whole thing in the village,
Yes, and
agreement with
that's
the
what I
village.
would say.
Okay,
Add it as Exhibit A.
If the village is the one that wants the sidewalk and they agree to the responsibilities, we need to make sure it's everything that the state is requiring.
Also in number 4, the state contract, 4B, says the municipality will file a parking declaration with the state. And I asked about that, and I said, what format would that come in? Is there a mandatory form? And he said, oh, no municipality ever does that. I said, well, this is
Why is
stated
it-
as a requirement that we have to do it. So if you're telling me we don't have to do it,
strike it,
strike it.
Why is it in
He
there?
Now,
said, I'll bring that up at my internal meeting that they were having last Wednesday or Thursday, and then I never touched base with them after that.
You'll probably get away with it on that issue. If it has to go to the office of general counsel, it wouldn't happen. But in this case, what you mentioned was, well, that doesn't exist. And in this case, it never would exist because the parking lane is gonna be eliminated. There won't be a parking lane there, right? So,
Right.
to have that in there, and again, when they create something like this, everybody's gotta sign it. They don't change anything but a strike based on that conversation. I think that we could probably get by with, And like I said, the curb and gutter, will probably all be dead before we gotta do anything with that. Same as the storm sewer, other than plugging.
Yeah,
Storm
stuff
sewer
will be
won't
new.
fail. Right, it'll be new.
So,
Yeah.
he expected, 25, 30 years before there'd even be any major maintenance.
That would be, the storm sewer itself is probably forever, because it's over-designed, it always is. The question would be, like on the curb and gutter, if the plows hit it, and again, we don't plow that.
Right.
The county does, and they get paid for it by the state. This is a state trunk highway, it's not a connecting highway. By law, there's no responsibility the town has in this at all, except the change of policy by the DOT that says, going forward, what we're doing as a state, we are providing the state trunk highway, nothing else, okay? What about storm sewer? We'll put a ditch in there, you don't need storm sewer, that's the answer, okay? We'll do that. Street sweeping, well, nobody does it anyway. I don't know, probably in spring, there's sand in the gutter, right?
Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of chunks of
Yeah.
blacktop from patching and concrete.
Especially right now.
Yeah, so there would be, probably an annual, okay, but they,
Walmart County does it once, if not twice a year.
Walworth County does.
The county does.
Okay, and again, it's their road, and by law, it's theirs to maintain. But the new policy with the DOT is as much maintenance that they can push off to someone else. That is their policy now. And their definition would be, I'll give you a state trunk highway that's pavement, it's not necessarily curb and gutter because we could put a ditch there, okay? So that's yours. And that's what they've been doing, so.
So my recommendation is the board not sign it unless the intergovernmental agreement is modified to attach the state contract and say every item of maintenance that is required of the town is the requirement of the village to do, and hold the town harmless when the town doesn't do it itself.
Okay.
Does opening the intergovernmental agreement cause Pandora's box?
It's not really being reopened because we never approved, we never.
This is a new one, brand new.
Sent them a signed copy of anything.
No, this is a draft, that's all we have. And again,
And that's between us and the village.
correct,
It is.
correct. But,
The village wants it.
yes, so we'll attach,
Right, the village is the one who wants this
Yes.
anyway,
Yeah, it's
right?
part of the project,
Yeah.
right,
because it's.
right.
We'll provide the land. and-
But we have some frontage by the cemetery on Highway 20, that's why we're,
And actually also the Gooden property right at the corner across from Quick Trip. I believe he said there was a rentals, two houses, both rentals. But again, we do have an ordinance for plowing snow on sidewalks, even though we don't have any sidewalk. The other option is to get rid of that, but I don't know if that's really a way to go here. It kind of sounds
they're
like.
not gonna get, the state doesn't want to get rid of sidewalk.
No,
With pedestrian and biking,
Right.
moving to the top of their list over the last 10 years, they're not gonna let us remove a sidewalk from this project.
okay. Well, I did talk with a village trustee and incoming president about this issue, because he said, hey, this is out there, and where you at? And I actually sent him an email previously, and then I told him, we're meeting today, because we did authorize you to look at it, and we'll come back. And his initial thoughts were is that, well, we'll just modify the IGA and we'll be good. Doesn't sound like it's gonna be a big issue. And really, most of this stuff is probably not a big issue, other than it's for something we didn't want, and it holds us potentially responsible to lose aid, state aid.
Right.
That's not a good thing for us. So, I will make that contact, as discussed here tonight, to make that request, and then they'll put out, I think they meet
So
every
make a
2 weeks.
motion.
Okay.
We need to authorize,
Authorize me to go ahead and discuss a revised intergovernmental agreement with the Village of East Troy for the State Highway 20 reconditioning project.
So moved.
Actually, I just made that motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Are you just, you're gonna modify it, or we want Jim to modify
Well,
the
the only
village
mod-
agreement?
well-
It's their kind, it's theirs, not ours. This is not ours. This was provided to us.
But aren't we
I
gonna
would
send
probably
a red
have
line
to review
response?
it after they modify it.
Yes. We could, okay, we have a motion second for me just to make that contact with the village and say, as discussed at this meeting tonight, we would like you to do the following. And then they will revise their IGA, which would have to then come to us here, and so we don't have any delay here. And by the way, I don't think stopping that project is real. It could delay it. I don't want to have any part of delaying a state project, I really don't. So I do think that should be another motion. So
That's why I would have, rather than asking them to make changes, we should make the changes that we want, so we don't have to go back and forth, right? They can't read our minds.
well, we did, Jim just stated what he wants in there.
Tell them this.
Well, when Joe makes the contact to say our board approved that the IGA is going to be modified, and basically, you need to hold the town harmless, not for the, 3 or 4 items, but for everything listed in the state contract. We're going to attach that as an exhibit
To them.
that should tell them what we're looking for.
do we need to authorize you to write that?
That's
though?
a second,
I think
that's a secondary
Michelle's
motion.
question.
Okay,
Why
still
would
on
we
the,
do it twice?
yeah, still on the floor. We have a motion and second to have me authorize me to make that contact and tell them what we discussed here and what we want done.
If I may interrupt,
Sure.
my point is, you don't really need me to do anything.
No,
If Joe tells them this is what we'll approve, and that's what they get to us, at the next board meeting, the board on
Has
its
to.
own can say, yes, we can approve this or not approve it.
right. And it's their agreement. They put it
I
together.
don't
We
even need
didn't.
to be kept in the loop on this one. Unless it comes back to us saying what we told them it has to say, the town won't approve it.
All right, so let's vote on that motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? None. I'd like to make the motion so that there is no potential holdup here, that we authorize Jim upon receipt of this revised IGA, that he reviews it. So there's no holdup, so at the next meeting, we would be ready, Jim would be ready to discuss this with us. So that's my motion. Barb, second. Discussion on that motion. We're pre-authorizing Jim to look at something that's not there yet, but when it will be there, he's authorized.
That makes sense.
We good? Good on that? Okay, on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None, motion carries. Okay. Make sure I don't have any more piles here and get in your way here, Piers. Okay, D, update on East Troy Railroad Museum Bridge, that's the Beach Road Bridge or the railroad right here. We have to authorize Jim to review that, and the discussion we had at that meeting is actually Jim may also, have contact with their attorney to start, getting the language correct here on how we can do this.
Mr. Huff from the village sent
County.
myself and attorney, is that what you said?
From the county,
Up is from the county.
Oh, what did I say?
village.
Oh, sorry, yeah, from the county. Sent the Tunnel Link contract to myself and Attorney Finke already. Attorney Finke went ahead and changed all the parties' names in that document. But I needed authorization to review and comment. He wanted to know what do I think? He said, well, I have to present it to my board and get further guidance from the board as to when they want this changeover to happen. I think they believe that since you need town ownership for some of the, funding out there.
Yeah.
They think this is going to happen like immediately.
Yep, okay.
And I don't believe that's the timeline.
All
you
right,
guys
Chad,
had.
Chad and Bill were not there, so I'll give a little review on that.
Thank you.
We did have the state, programming engineer, he's the guy that has basically control of all the purses, from the state as well as the federal government. And we established, even after being told by several sources that the Railroad Museum as a nonprofit could obtain, state or federal aid for a public bridge. Doesn't exist. The only way funding can occur on that bridge, whether it's rehab or replacement, is if it's owned by a governmental entity. So that's how we got to the point of, okay, Tom, we're gonna have to, buy it for the dollar or whatever it is, so we own it. That allows us then to, apply, for the two programs that would allow funding of this. If
Now,
it's,
when you said that out loud,
Hmm?
that has to happen at a meeting of the electors, correct?
No, we're not purchasing property or land.
What is
It's
it?
a bridge
Buying a bridge.
structure.
we're buying a bridge.
There's an exception.
That's not property?
Nope.
Now, here's the deal about that, that makes it a little bit different though. Like I said, the sufficiency rating on the bridge is 61.6 at the last, inspection last summer. In order for it to get funding for replacement, it needs to be at 50 or below, and it's deteriorating fast. If it's gonna be replaced, the funding would be 100%. Everything would be covered, absolutely everything. If it's a rehab, instead of, the 800,000, it's gonna be 250,000, that would be 80%. So the details that Jim is making reference to is, okay, we can agree to buy the bridge, but how do we protect the town that keeps basically the museum, as an owner or a responsible party for the maintenance until it's replaced? Once it's replaced, we already as a board said, if we get a new bridge, we're gonna buy it, because it shouldn't be owned by a nonprofit. It's our road. We have an easement to go over it. That's not good.
Let me address Michelle's question.
Yep.
Section
I believe you.
60.50, sub 1 and 2, acquisition of land for roads. Acquire lands to build, alter, extend, or repair highways, streets, or alleys in the town. The statute specifies that the acquisition for these purposes is an exception to 60.10, sub 2, sub B, which provides that the town meeting may authorize the town to purchase land for these purposes. But again, we're not even purchasing land.
Yeah. I just think it should be on the agenda for the April meeting of
Maybe
the
like a
electors.
report, you mean? Well, we'll be getting there, but that'd be,
Right, right, but I think it's something that the elector should be aware of, because it's gonna incur costs, potentially.
potentially. We would certainly like to see the
Right,
100%.
right, so that's, yeah,
Yeah.
so that was, I will go address that when we talk about the
Okay,
agenda.
Beach Road. Okay. All right, so anyway, so we have to authorize Jim to, review what he's got, and then set the table for us of what he's gonna bring to us. And we'll have to have a meeting on that. I'm not sure if that's an open or closed meeting. It's kind of negotiation to a point, but not really. That's gonna be something we'll have to
I
address.
have to look to see if there is any exception.
Okay.
None jumps out at me
All right.
now.
Right, but the bottom line is, we do not want to get to the position where this summer or next summer, the county comes out and their responsibility on the county level is, they would be the one to post that bridge. I mean, we could do it, but they're the ones that, based on the inspection reports, they're the ones that do it. So they could post a weight limit deal on it, which is bad, or it could be closed. That would be absolutely terrible, okay? Especially for where that bridge is in relation to, the police here and then getting across I-43, et cetera. So, that's why this is on here, so we need a motion. Question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Has any discussion been made about, some emails from a resident that we've gotten about like locations or what that would cost. Is there any discussion been with
You mean
all of this?
about not
I
doing the
wasn't
bridge?
there.
Yeah, there was, I think, Ken just mentioned that. If you look at where the town parking lot is, and then go out on ES and stand there, that is, there's a high point on each side. It's a low point on the profile of ES. In other words, it would be a danger from either eastbound or westbound. So in other words,
Well, it's a
we go
danger
from.
where it is right now by the
Well,
bridge. Look how many people
Yeah.
have, I've been in one myself.
Yeah, and that would be more dangerous for two reasons. One, because of the sight distance, and number two, no longer do you have a cross intersection, now you've got two Ts, which is inherently dangerous. So that would, and there's a drainage issue there.
From Miramar Road or whatever, and I get you.
Right,
I
and,
just wanna know if it was discussed or.
The county guys
The
do.
state only talked about funding options for repair or replacement, not relocation and replacement.
right, and it would be 100% our cost then if we put a
Exactly.
new,
So I
accurate
think that's-
crossing.
Well, and I don't know that you
But we
can put a
wouldn't own the
road
bridge.
through
We wouldn't have to
property
repair it
that was
anymore. You
purchased
repair a
with
road.
For stewardship funds,
Build
park,
a road, and you're probably gonna cost at least $500,000 to $600,000 just to build a road, which would be dangerous for that one.
No, and that's one of the questions I was asking.
And
Yeah.
you'd have to build
I'm
it
glad
up
for
to
those
get over the
answers.
railroad.
yeah, and the county
So
won't
you'd
know all
probably
that,
put
I
in the
mean,
dip,
yeah.
because you'd have to build it up, but you'd have to build up to get over the railroad.
And there's a drainage way through that same location that goes from the.
So the answer was, yeah, we talked about it.
The state
Thank
just
you.
did talk about it, he said he didn't wanna mention it, but
when the
he thinks it's a bad idea.
It's a bit,
Did,
okay,
yeah.
and safety does come
Yes,
first, no doubt about it.
I mean, before they did it,
He did
they were
mention
hydro
that.
planning on
Okay.
that, and that was
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, so is someone making the motion?
Yeah, we need a motion. D
What
90.
documents are you asking to review, Jim?
The contract that Attorney Finke drafted.
Which is what?
Motion to authorize Jim to review the contracts from Attorney Finke relative to the electric railroad and bridge issue before this board.
Okay, we have
I'll
a motion.
second.
Michelle, second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay,
Fine.
new business, A. Jesus, seems like we already talked about this. Discussion regarding amending records retention in regards to video recording and authorize Attorney Mills to amend if needed.
Just make a
Well, I
motion.
would like to authorize Attorney Mills to research the video records retention requirements.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, agenda items for annual meeting, and you already
I
started
would
one, so
like
go
to
ahead.
include the railroad news bridge.
So, like a report, and I should probably do that and ask if any assistants, you'll be there too, right, Jim, annual meeting?
It was a very informative meeting on that Saturday. There are options available for funding.
But it's gotta be owned by a government, that's the
Right,
problem. That's
right.
the problem.
But I would also like to consider in the whole analysis, Mr. Lynch talked about potentially getting us below the 50%
Yeah,
this
here's the
year.
deal.
He could do a
Yeah.
study, cause this year is when you could get the 100% funding,
Correct.
but you have to be below 50%
Uh,
rating.
I believe that one is due September, October.
October.
October. Yeah, and here's the deal on that, and again, that bridge, on how it's built, the materials on it, I don't like it at all, it's built like a building. It's got voided slab girders in it, which normally you'd see as a flooring system in buildings. And in buildings, you don't get the dynamic motion of heavy vehicles and salt. You get a loading of, chlorides in there, which makes for rapid deterioration. So it may be when he does his application for a rehab, you have to have a rehab study as part of that submittal. He may find that when they remove the 3-inch overlay or the 4-inch concrete overlay, it's all faulted, you can see where the joints are, a 4-inch overlay. When that's removed, that the remaining voided slab girders could not take the weight of
vehicles.
the removal and the
So we
replacement.
wanted that to be on the annual meeting? agenda?
Well, that is,
Reporting on that kind of stuff?
it's all type.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Like informative is what you're saying.
Yes,
Part of
yeah,
it.
a total report on Beach Road on how we got here and where it's at and what has to happen, including that, you know, we're looking at an agreement with the East Troy Railroad Museum Incorporated, which is a nonprofit.
I think an update on the police building RFP responses.
We will know that.
Update.
I would be willing to do a communications committee update.
I'm sorry?
I would be willing to do a communications
Okay.
committee update if interested.
I think that'd be a good idea. Communication update, garage, Beach Road,
Fire district.
Fire District. You wanna do that one, I take it?
Yeah.
Fire District, and there's some new activity that people are not aware of. Fire District. So basically, those are 4 reports. Beach Road, Police Garage, Communications, Fire District, or East Troy Emergency Area Services District.
So there'll be concise reports drafted to go in the packet?
I would think
will
that would
go
be
to-
fair.
To the annual meeting
I mean, get-
attendees?
I would,
Because it is a citizens meeting, and we don't wanna put too many items out there.
well, this covers a handful, that's for sure. The garage one, I'll work with Todd on that. It's gonna be, basically the guts, but it basically tells how we got here too. Because we had a lot of changes, thanks to that gentleman next to you there with his, computer program. I think we saved a bunch of money there.
Thanks, Scott.
And that was helpful. And the Beach Road one, I'll draft that. I hope to get that done. I'd like to get these both done this week, but I got several more meetings this week too. 1, 2, 3.
Well, I'm assuming our updates for the annual meeting will have to be reviewed and approved at the April 10th town board meeting before we can present to the
Mhm.
That would
electors.
be awesome.
That would take, is there anything else I guess we should know now? I'd rather not have something new come up in April. This covers
That's what
a
I'm
lot.
saying, I'm assuming everyone wants to read
Oh,
the
the
report
actual
at the
reports.
April meeting, because otherwise I won't be able to give it.
April. What is that date? April what?
April 10th is our regular town board meeting, and the meeting of the electors is the 18th.
18th. Well, that should be no problem. I'll get it out as soon as I can, and since it's just I'll call it a draft report, because if anybody has any comments, that'll be during our public session during April. Okay,
When's the annual meeting?
18th.
So Railroad Bridges, Joe, update on the police garage is Todd, Concom update is Michelle, and Fire District or East Area is Barb.
I'll work with Todd on the garage. We've been doing everything else, might as well get that part done too. Right, think that's good? I think that's a bunch. So, okay. All right, approved contract for maintenance assessment services with Associated Appraisal and Consultants. As you know, when we did our budget this year, we had to make a decision of what type of assessment we were gonna do, and I think we reacted properly. We didn't take the full reval because of the changing market. We also didn't take no action because of our percentage on where we were at, 78% or whatever, assessed, I believe, ratio. So this is really the contract that we've been waiting for. I believe you asked for this several times, Kim, correct?
Yeah, this is the first I got it. It's like,
He dated it November.
well, because they never sent it to me,
Well,
Oh,
so,
well,
yeah,
do we normally do 5 years?
yeah.
Okay.
With an assessor, continuity is extremely important.
And I'm okay with the 5 years. I'd be a little leery on the automatic renewal. I think I'd prefer like an option to renew for 2 one-year terms and state the agreed upon prices for each year when you amend it to
I think you
extend
get
it.
a better price when you go for a longer term.
and we could,
We
it also,
would, but just automatic renewal makes me nervous that we're not signing anything.
As a general rule, I don't like automatic renewals.
I don't either.
it says unless either party honored before July 1st preceding year notifies by certified mail. That's the
Yeah.
out on it.
Right.
But to have it there, I thought we had this discussion on the last one. Did we do on the last one?
I don't
You
remember.
don't know? Okay.
Satisfactory service?
Excellent service.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm willing to commit to 5 years, and that's locking in the prices for 5 years.
I like that.
It does say termination only with cause, so that's usually a flag, but,
I mean, I understand it's a contract with a governmental agency, but even my dealings with the town doesn't say you can't get rid of me.
terminate, right,
Unless it's for
without
cause.
cause. There's usually an option to terminate without cause.
All right. So, Kim, have you reviewed this yet? You just got it, you said, right?
Yeah, I just got it.
And then,
And this is basically what, when we started with them, this is basically the exact same contract, except for the different type of reval that we're
Okay.
doing for it.
Okay, so all the guts of it are all the same.
and then on page 6, do you specify monthly or quarterly?
I pay them
billing?
monthly.
Okay, so it would be good to just choose, it says monthly or quarterly, it'd be good to remove or quarterly if that's what we're gonna use.
Well, we might want the option,
Yeah.
if we can't pay them monthly for some reason.
Gives us a little room, yeah. Okay.
Even when I was sick, they
Well,
were
we
okay.
can change it.
Motion to approve the contract maintenance service with the town of East Troy and Associated Appraisal Consultants.
Second.
All right, Barb, second. Further discussion?
You're not changing anything?
Well,
No changes? Is that-
I didn't hear anything other than the automatic deal. If you want to strike that, we could make that part of the motion. Right now, the motion and the second is to approve it as is, so under discussion, your question is, should we strike the automatic renewer? Is that what you're saying?
I would recommend we, yes, modify that language.
Okay.
If we were to
That's why I
strike
brought it
it,
up.
it would be for cause. We have clause written in the contract.
Well, that's,
Otherwise, our history with them has been exemplary.
yeah. Well, we do have termination above it. I mean, we
What
have
if we
term,
get a different guy assigned to us that does the bare minimum and not the
He
stuff?
would be working for
No one can predict the future.
them. Yeah,
Wouldn't that be
guy could
cause?
die on the way
We've
home.
had more than one.
Guy could die.
No, in my term of
I mean-
almost 19 years, we've only had National Appraisal and now Associated Appraisal.
Right.
When they've done a reval, they've brought in other staff members in, but Luke Mack has been our primary contact with them since we started.
And if they gave us somebody different, wouldn't that be cause?
Not if
No,
they could say they're meeting their requirements.
it doesn't identify the person, does it? Does it identify who our
I thought
assessor
Luke
is?
was so informative when
Agreed.
we sat down with him last.
Absolutely. That doesn't mean they get everything they want in the contract.
If they don't define cause, it'd be the statutory definition that I believe is in chapter 17.
Either party may terminate the contract only with cause. Why would we terminate him without cause, I guess is the question.
We wouldn't.
Just don't like him?
We've got them locked in
We-
for 5 years.
We
wouldn't.
could get another, an option that comes in 30% cheaper or something, or who knows?
That would be for cause, that would be a breach of contract.
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that we might want an option to terminate without cause.
Call the question.
Okay. Well, we had our discussion. Okay, on the motion to approve this contract for assessment services, maintenance assessment services, without any changes on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Name,
Okay, roll call vote. Blackowski, aye.
Wales, aye.
Ray's name.
Church, I,
Booker, yes.
Okay. Motion carries. All right. Next. All right, attorney's report, discussion on transferring liquor license to the Village of McWanago. Two issues here, Jim.
Yeah, there are two issues. One is, can it be done? The answer is yes. And since June 1st, 2016, there is statutory language that allows you to transfer for no less than $10,000 a reserve. The other issue, I'm not sure how it came into you. I believe the wording I saw is a business that wants to open in McWanago.
Expand in Quantico.
Right, was sent here to ask us about it.
Yeah.
And the statute requires that a municipality make that request, not a business. So until that happens, we can't do anything with it.
Or we can just kill it now and be done with it.
I have a question. I heard about it a while ago, and obviously a lot has been going on, and the more I think about it, you know, I think kind of what Michelle was saying with the contract, no one reads the future, so we don't know what's happening, so it's nice to have an option to maybe get out of things. We don't know what the future of the town's gonna bring. What's the advantage short of $10,000 of getting, we can never get this back.
No.
Right? Once it's the
Unless our population
Population
increases.
grows.
which we all know how that's happening, but we can't read the future on that either, but,
Right.
you know, I mean, here you do have a couple of commercial properties here, which couldn't that maybe entail? And is it worth giving up something you can never get back just, I mean, if, in case something were to come about in the next 5, 10 years?
Well, let's just say a hotel does go in at the end of the street. They might wanna have a lobby or bar area where they serve alcohol.
Right.
Well, we've got unused licenses right now. We have 3 sitting in reserve, right?
Yeah.
We do.
What if they built, yep, at Double D's, right?
Oh, there are 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have three of them.
We have,
Romas.
we have 4, so we'll have 3 in
No,
reserve.
we
Yeah,
have,
we have
we have
three.
a total of 8,
Okay,
okay?
yep,
Currently, we have Lulabelle's Dockside,
Yep.
Lake Beulah Country Club, Lake Beulah Yacht Club, the Hive Tap Room, and Beulah Bait and Boat, AKA Fred's Tap.
okay.
We no longer have Double D's, Lindy's, or Romas.
So we
So we
were
want
using
three
all of them at one
At one
time.
time, they were all being used.
And we could potentially need all of them again.
I'm just asking the question, that I would hate to give away something for, which seems, 10 grand's a 10 grand or
It says
whatever.
no less than
Wait.
10.
No less, so I mean, pending
Yeah,
on
we
what
could
you're
ask
selling
for
it
a
for,
million if we
it's
want.
something you can't ever get back.
Correct.
For me, that just makes me question it, that's all
I did,
I wanted to bring up.
I did receive an email today because, another municipality in Waldo County asked the same question. And the town of Delavan sold one to the city of Delavan for $25,000.
It has to be contiguous or within 2 miles of, otherwise you cannot transfer to another municipality.
And the
Yeah,
bill,
maybe the Village of East Troy would come
And
to
we
us
are
and want
connected
one.
to the village of McQuango, so.
correct. And actually,
Why
the
would
village
we do
didn't,
anything different for the village of East Troy versus what we would
yeah,
do?
we don't have a ballot request. We don't have a
Would
ballot
we want
request.
to, right? We have the Tri-Troy Alliance, would that be a factor?
Could be. So none of the 3
I don't
that are
know.
not being used now have not been surrendered?
So we
That doesn't matter. If they don't renew, they don't renew.
Right.
Okay, so that's how you get a determination.
And
So,
that's November that they get
Yeah.
renewed? or
yeah, I agree with Chad. I mean, once you give it up, you can't get it back.
And I don't know, maybe there isn't gonna be another one, but if,
You know.
I don't know, it's not something you can ever get back, it just makes me raise a flag for me, like, what's it really worth? You know?
Yeah.
Let's say 15 years down the road and things are changing and times are changing and things are getting.
Well,
Well,
the statute says.
Right, you know, I mean, just
Then you
in
get
case.
more.
That if another municipality does make the request, it says if the request is granted. So you don't lose anything, I mean, you
Right.
can say, sorry.
Yep.
You don't have to do anything.
Sure, okay, yeah,
Yep.
I'm just trying to make a point.
Yep, good point. Bill, anything to add to this one?
I think this subject should be tabled till we have an actual request.
Request from a municipality.
Well, you don't have to table it, you can just deny it now, and then we'd be acting on a new request if one comes in. So I would say we not table it, we would.
Is the business expecting a response from us?
They did.
I guess the
haven't heard
response would
anything
be,
from them since last month, so.
Our
the response would be, it has to go through a municipality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that would be a separate request, so I would recommend that we just deny it and notify them that we met, we discussed it, and we're not interested.
This was just
I
a
don't think you have to
discussion.
take any
There's nothing
action
to
at all.
deny.
There's no request.
Don't have to do anything.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just
discussion.
informational.
Just,
Jim's
yeah, well,
Research.
yeah, we had our discussion. And, you're saying we don't have to, being it's not a valid request, we don't have to even respond to them.
Correct.
Correct.
Doing nothing is doing something in this case.
I got you. Okay, we're moving on then. Second public comments period. Anyone got anything to add? Bob?
I'd just like to continue where I left off with Shorewood Drive. I think all the residents, Kim, have you ever had any pushback on anyone paying the $35 for the snow plowing?
No.
Never? Okay. Do you charge any public roads residents $35?
No.
Okay.
We get
And,
funding for it.
okay, and so there's no funding for our road on the DOT, right?
No.
There's no funding for it, everyone's paying $35, which isn't assessed to public roads.
Right.
You're saying that we won't get snow plowing if we don't sign the agreement for the private roads, right? But yet.
Well, that's what, with the recommendation, was the board hasn't decided.
All right, but that's a recommendation, but yet I can't get police service on my private road. I have an issue with that. You know, I don't have an issue paying the $35. I understand that there may need to be snowplow contracts in place, but when we call the police, you guys have already deemed it private. Everything you said,
We didn't
everything
deem
in
it
the.
private, it's been private
been
since
private
before
for a
this
long
board
time.
ever.
Okay, then why
From
can't I have the
inception.
police enforce trespassing on our private road?
You can't enforce trespass on a private road.
Why? It's private.
It's private property.
It's private to the residents who own it. It's private. Outside people shouldn't be able to come and access our private property.
So
Well,
what
and
if
if
they
they
say, what if
are-
they came in my yard? My property is private property.
Right.
Can I call the police and say, hey, someone's in my yard?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah,
It would be
trespassing?
different if it's in your yard versus on the road.
It's private property.
They
it's-
own
it's
that
private.
road.
We own it, we're responsible for maintenance, and I believe an ordinance was written so that tickets could be issued to people who didn't have parking permits for Miramar subdivision.
By the
I
park, I
think the
believe.
board should look at
Park.
a similar thing for Shorewood Drive. And it was one person pushing the issue saying they're gonna use our
Right.
private access for their public access, but the person who's gonna be developing the property behind us, if there's cement trucks down there, I worry about that. We will have a road meeting, and you don't want the public
How do
comments
you
to
get
last.
under- I don't understand, unless you guys approve the driveway connecting into your road, how would they?
I don't think it'll get approved, but
Right.
I know the people who are trying to use the lake ride access, they've had their tree trimmers, they've had their landscape trucks and stuff on our road accessing the back of their property. If I can't call the cops and ask them to move, and the cops say, sorry, can't do it. And Al's a great, Chief Director's a great guy, I know him
Didn't
for
the
many
county tell you
years.
the same thing?
What?
Didn't the county tell you the same thing?
We've got a
Sheriff?
meeting with the county.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I was not down there when the sheriff came down there, but we do have a meeting with the county to find out how to get this resolved.
Right.
Are you saying the police won't respond to a call on Shorewood?
They'll respond to a call, but
They won't issue citations.
they won't issue a citation, so there's
Or
people who have been
trespassing.
asked to leave the private access, and the cops say there's nothing they can do about it
That's for trespassing.
for trespassing, so that's what I'm asking, is
So
if someone's
you're
on
looking
there.
for a separate ordinance so that,
We can issue citations on private roads,
that becomes.
including issuing speeding tickets. I mean, once you go down that road, you go down that road for
Long way.
all violations.
Okay, all right. But you made your point, and it's real, and you're right, it's a private road.
And I've gotta go back to 50 residents in 2 weeks and say,
Yeah.
this is what I found out, this is what's going on, and, I mean, 50 residents at 3 minutes
I think
each
it was
with
a-
public
I was
comments,
some-
we could be here really
similar
long, we'll have a lot of
situation
time to
where
discuss
There
it.
was a family vehicle
So-
and a friend.
Understood.
And the one person hit.
I had him here
their
once
car
before.
In the driveway, and the officer was like, what happened to private property, there's nothing I can do. Isn't that kind of similar to
Don't
what?
start like
it's
that.
gonna
Nope,
say?
I don't start until you start talking.
But he couldn't let it.
I don't-
happen on private property, and it was.
Zero.
I wanna ask you a question before we start with that.
Public road.
Right.
So I have a series of questions that I wanna ask you. Do you want me just to give all the questions right away and you come back and answer them?
Or do
He
you
doesn't
wanna?
have to answer anything.
No, This is public comments.
It's public discussion.
Make your
Okay, then
comment.
I'm just gonna ask him, if you feel it in your heart to answer him, then you can answer him.
Yeah. Shoot.
Okay, you guys had a private meeting before this, closed session meeting. When you came back out into open session, was anything discussed on the record about what happened in private session?
Yeah, and the doors
The
were
motion
open.
was taken.
And the doors were open.
Yes.
Well, I didn't get the door, get back in here until everything was done, so I don't know if any of this
You were in
discussion.
here when we made
Yeah,
the
we made a
motion.
motion.
You were the first one in.
Yeah.
Okay, got a question regarding the money that we have in our township here, our general fund money. Is it, in a bank somewhere? And is it over $250,000? And do we have protections on it in case with the government, with bail-ins and bailouts going on? Are we protected so that we're not gonna have a problem? We received, Town of East Troy, I got the paper right here, $424,000, 221 for ARPA funds. And I'd like to know if there's any money left from the ARPA funds. And I'd also like to know on the decision-making process of spending that money, if all of the town board members, supervisors were involved in that process.
Well, that one you guys should be able to answer.
That one's easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all of the,
All the funds that, for various projects, official government activities. Yes.
okay.
And actually, the other one about the banks, Kim could say, the FDIC, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, but if you have more than 250 in there, you're not gonna get covered, because they only guarantee up to
That's
250.
why our money is with the double A rated bank.
Okay, but if
And the
the
last
whole
one-
bank
Towns have a
crashes,
level than 250 also, because you have state
okay.
involvement too.
Was all the money spent from ARPA?
no, we still are working on some bits and pieces on the end of it.
Okay, is there an expiration date on when ARPA money has to be used up by?
Yeah, end of 24. End of 24, and then the record keeping another year past that.
All right, can the board have a public meeting to explain where the money was spent, all of it?
I think I handed it out at the last annual meeting. I could actually, it's be a handout. It's a spreadsheet showing.
Yeah, that spreadsheet.
You did hand it out?
I thought
Yeah,
so.
Then I
the
have it.
spreadsheet you probably have in front of you is where the money went.
Okay, were any raises given to any departments with the ARPA funds?
No, not loud.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. I think we answered most of them, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You probably know me by now. I'm gonna offer a thought if I have it. If we're having maintenance contracts with the village for a piece of property that they might annex,
They won't, it's a cemetery.
so why,
It's a tax exempt property, they'll never take it over.
I asked a question.
okay, I'm sorry.
I did.
I told you I would offer it. You could do it.
Good idea, though, because there's no taxes on it and potential future maintenance.
The other thing is on the contract, if that guy, that gentleman is the guy that makes this baby work, and you're not gonna take anything out of it, put his name in the contract. If he's gone, then that's cause, right? That's just a thought, so, that's all I have.
Well, we're not contracting with him, we're contracting with his company.
No, but I've done
He's
it,
saying put the name of the.
We'll only deal with.
that the work will be done by that person.
You could win the lottery and run to walk to work.
It was approved with no changes.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I've done it in the private sector and it's worked pretty
Yeah.
well, because you know who you got. In fact, we had the same problem with Town Web, right? We had a guy that we were working with and we were happy with, and we get the contract and he's gone,
Offshore,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yes, that does happen.
it does, and it's unfortunate.
Luckily, that's a very big firm. All right, stop. All right, any other public comments? All right, license and special events,
None.
special and pending meetings.
Okay, on March 15th at 6:30, March 20th is the next communication committee meeting at 6:30. March 21st at 5 o'clock is the next ETA ESD meeting. Starting March 21st, all day is the beginning of in-person absentee voting for the April spring election. The last day to vote in person is March 31st. March 28th is at 9 o'clock is the public test of the voting equipment. March 28th at 6 o'clock. Thank you to Danny, but she already left. As a school referendum forum here at the town hall. April 3rd at 6:30 is the next communication meeting in the hallway.
Because you're set up for the
Voting.
election
Yeah.
year.
Go in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I was told the courtroom has to be locked,
Oh, okay.
remain locked.
What day is this?
April 3rd.
Oh,
On
I
Monday.
spelled April wrong there.
Yeah.
Sorry about the typo. April 4th is the spring election. April 5th and 19th is the next planning commission meetings. April 10th is the next town board meeting. April 18th at 6:30 is the annual meeting at the fire department. April 19th is the Booth Lake Memorial Park Board, and then April 24th is the next communication committee meeting.
Question for the annual meeting, will that be live cast, live stream?
No way to
Do
do
we
that.
have
No way to do this is held at the
I'm
firehouse.
just asking.
That's where I was gonna get that.
That's why, as last year, I suggested we move back here, so we could stream it and we don't have to rent an audio, but we have to rent, or to have it at the firehouse, we inconvenience the fire department because they have to move everything out. Then we have to rent and pay for chairs, then we have to rent and pay for a sound system, which doesn't always pick up the best, but I would like to get it back here.
You want it here?
That would be the goal.
That's where it's,
Maybe next
And
year
then-
we'll have a police building.
How big is the police garage area?
Well,
We may be-
police car, right, 'cause that's not for the public, it would be for the town.
And then
could lock all the doors.
Chief DeGaro told me he'd only charge us $1 million rent for this year to use the building.
Million?
So,
Very
only a
bad.
million, yep.
So it's
Okay.
gonna be at the fire station with the inconveniences and not live stream.
Well, it has
Has
to
to
be,
be.
right?
That, the electors
It has to
determine,
be, unless we change it.
yeah, the electors determine where the meeting is, time and place. All right, on March 28th, you did put down 6 PM?
Yeah, she did mention
You
that.
did mention that, okay.
That's what Danny said.
Gotcha.
And she said she was gonna get me some kind of flyer form that we can put on the website and post.
Okay. Very good. Okay, that's it. We're gonna review bills for payment. You're welcome to sit here and watch us sign some checks and invoices.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, everybody,
Seconds.
Chad, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
For the second.
Almost 3 hours. 2 hours is the goal, 4 hours is terrible.
Motion to adjourn to the top of the agenda.
Either one.
And don't forget that.
Instead of the whole,
Those chemists,
I mean,
the end of meeting,
his office is-